Chapter 481, The Destiny Pattern That Surpasses All Beings. Listening to Guan's words, Chen Luo's face flushed with both shame and a lack of confidence. But, even if I continue to cultivate now, will it be enough? Chen Luo asked through gritted teeth. He had once been at the Mahayana realm in his cultivation level, and he naturally understood the power of immortal cultivation. But his wife had died right before his eyes, and not even the Saint King could stop it. That was the Saint King, a powerful being the likes of which his Chen family had never seen since its establishment. Guan stared at him and said, I can save your wife from her tragedy, but future tragedies must be prevented by yourself. I'm telling you in advance, your son's destiny is not simple. Troubles will follow him endlessly, and it was because of him that your wife died. You now have two choices. One is to sever the causal connection with your son, and I can make it so you have no relationship with him at all. The other is to continue being his father, but there will be no more opportunities to give up in the future. Whatever you choose, I will save your wife. Upon hearing this, Chen Luo's expression changed drastically, and his hands clenched into fists on his thighs. Guan could hear the struggle in Chen Luo's heart, his many thoughts, some of which were dark, but Guan paid them no mind. Humans are complex, and hearts have their dark places, but as long as the choice made is good, there's no need to discuss the heart. The room fell into silence. After a long while, Chen Luo let out a sigh and said, Senior, I wish to protect him for life. The father-son bond is hard to cultivate in 100 lifetimes. I should not escape my duty. I believe my wife would have thought the same. I will strive to cultivate, protect him, support him even if it costs me my life. Guan, expressionless, asked, No regrets? Chen Luo, no longer hesitating, smiled openly and said, No regrets. Guan showed a smile and said, Then go and cultivate well. With that, he didn't wait for Chen Luo to react and, waving his sleeve, whisked Chen Luo away. The furnishings in the room shook, but the door was not disturbed. In an instant, Chen Luo found himself at the dojo of the Hidden Spirit Palace. Guan did not watch the warm scene of the couple reuniting. Letting the deep-sea dragon carp suffer was enough. But with his experience he probably only found it interesting. Guan raised his hand, took out the Theory of Heaven and placed it on the table, then he started perusing the book. The sunlight outside the window gradually dimmed. Guan still did not put away the Theory of Heaven. Chen Luo's arrival and disappearance did not attract attention in the Third Medicine Valley, only Long Qing asked Guan about it curiously. A month later. Guan, riding the Blood Prison Great Saint, returned to the Third Medicine Valley. Today they had visited the End of the World Valley and both were in good spirits. Haha, that Xian overestimated himself, thought he could compete with me. The moment I used my full strength he was down. The Blood Prison Great Saint, transformed into an ox, snorted, very proud. Within the barrier drawn by Guan, the Blood Prison Great Saint and Xian sparred with all their might. The loose Immortal Realm Blood Prison Great Saint laughed last. Not to mention that the Blood Prison Great Saint's cultivation level was higher, actually, his lifespan before reaching Nirvana was also greater. Fighting to such a degree, Guan felt that Xian hadn't lost. Worthy of being the top person of the future immortal cultivation realm. Guan chatted nonchalantly with the Blood Prison Great Saint, while his divine sense watched over the world, observing how those old acquaintances struggled in life. Leah was being chased, in a critical situation, this youngster hanging by a thread, and yet he was with a mother and daughter. Yuanying was listening to teachings. The island master of that island claimed to be the immortal of eternal life, willing to bestow the longevity technique to those fated, but in reality he was an evil cultivator who did no good. And Hao was still sitting in front of that celestial Tao golden core, cultivating heavenly divine skills, his power soaring. Lu Lingjun was still in the Buddhist sect of the Sea of Suffering, recently given a tough problem by Buddha. She was still sitting in meditation, thinking hard. Jiang Qiong was undergoing solitary trials. This fellow, indeed from a demon Tao background, wanted to steal another sect's divine skills. Guan also saw How Long reigning supreme on a continent dominated by the demon race, though his second-in-command was secretly plotting to kill him and take his true blood. Other old acquaintances were each living their eventful lives. Guan would not intervene if he could avoid it. Being an onlooker also felt quite good. At that moment, a cyan-robed Taoist came before the Blood Prison Great Saint and raised his hand in greeting, saying, I am He Qing Song and I have seen the sword venerable. The Blood Prison Great Saint suddenly felt displeased and said, Never heard of you, move aside or I might just stomp you to death. He had seen all of Guan's friends and having never seen this person, he naturally would not show courtesy. He Qing Song, scolded by the Blood Prison Great Saint, did not get angry but instead looked calmly at Guan, which only made the blood prison great saint even angrier. Guan looked at He Qingsong and asked with a smile, "Is there something you need?" He Qingsong, 8th floor of the Nirvana realm 6420/20,000/20,000. Ordinarily at his lifespan limit, he seemed unremarkable, but his body was enveloped with a strong celestial Tao destiny that made Guan very interested. He was entwined with the celestial Tao destiny to the extent that Guan couldn't deduce his cause and effect or his destiny. He Qingsong, neither servile nor overbearing, said, "I wonder what Sword Venerable thinks of this world. Do you intend to become an immortal god who protects all living beings?" After Guan spoke, Blood Prison Great Saint fell silent, casting a suspicious glance towards He Qingsong. Could this person have an extraordinary origin? To him, He Qingsong was just a common cultivator of the Nirvana realm. In the Supreme Sect nowadays, being at the Nirvana realm was not uncommon. Years before, a celestial and earthly immortal had become an elder of the Supreme Sect, and it had been quite the affair. Guan shook his head and said, "I have no particular thoughts, nor do I wish to become an immortal god. I merely wish to live peacefully here, savoring the passage of time." He Qingsong immediately followed up, "If that is so, why then would Sword Venerable keep the theory of heaven?" Theory of heaven? Blood Prison Great Saint was taken aback, unaware that their master had a piece of the theory of heaven. Far away before the mountain of 10,000 swords where Zhu Luo Sword Monarch was meditating an enlightenment on his sword skills, he opened his eyes and his gaze fell on He Qingsong. This aura, could it be? Zhu Luo Sword Monarch frowned, a bad premonition rising in his heart. Guan asked with a smile, "Do you want the theory of heaven?" He Qingsong replied, "I do not wish for it, merely that its presence in the hands of Sword Venerable means the great fortune seekers of this world cannot obtain the true immortal inheritance. Your Tao practice should not intervene in the operations of the world." Guan looked at him as if trying to see through him, but He Qingsong was not intimidated and met Guan's gaze. Blood Prison Great Saint's eyes flashed coldly upon hearing He Qingsong not addressing Guan with respect. An Xan, Long Qing and Qin Xuan noticed this scene and approached, with other disciples noticing someone was obstructing their master and something seemed amiss, drawing more of them closer. Long Qing moved the fastest. He arrived in front of He Qingsong, sizing him up and saying, "It's you. I've seen you before. What is your identity that you dare to be so disrespectful to my master?" He Qingsong did not answer and just quietly stared at Guan, waiting for his response. Guan, evidently interested, asked, "Have you come for the sake of all living beings?" He Qingsong replied, "I have come for the operation of the world. This past month, living among the cultivators of the Supreme Sect, I have come to know your character and actions. If you truly have a compassionate and merciful heart, you should release the theory of heaven to allow this realm to welcome its savior sooner. This too is the will of the heavenly Tao." Guan raised his right hand, palm up, and the theory of heaven materialized in it. He looked towards the distance at Zhu Xi and waved her over. Zhu Xi hesitated for a moment but, steeling herself, approached. He Qingsong, following Guan's gaze, had a slight change of expression as his pupils dilated. How could it be her? He Qingsong wrinkled his brow, thinking in astonishment. Zhu Xi came to Blood Prison Great Saint's side and raised her hand in greeting to Guan. Guan smiled and said, "Disciple, this person here wishes your master to hand over the theory of heaven. What do you think I should do?" Zhu Xi had heard the conversation, and although the theory of heaven was hers, she feared causing trouble. "It is entirely up to you, master," Zhu Xi respectfully said. Guan laughed and looked back at He Qingsong, asking with a smile, "Could my disciple possibly be the savior?" He Qingsong's face turned awkward and he didn't directly answer, seemingly on guard against Zhu Xi. Everyone else could see it too and confusedly scrutinized Zhu Xi. Zhu Xi didn't have much presence at the Third Medicine Valley, and the disciples hadn't expected her to have another identity. Guan continued, "It seems you two cannot see through the will of heaven." He casually threw the theory of heaven to Zhu Xi, who instinctively caught it. Guan patted Blood Prison Great Saint on the shoulder, signaling him to move forward. This time, He Qingsong no longer stopped Blood Prison Great Saint but looked at Zhu Xi with a complex expression, his face cycling through clouds and sunlight. The gazes of others shifted back and forth between Zhu Xi and He Qingsong, their minds filled with curiosity and confusion. Seeing that the situation was unfavorable, Zhu Xi turned to leave. "Your Highness, would you like to restore your destiny that reigns above all beings?" He Qingsong suddenly called out, stopping Zhu Xi. Zhu Luo Sword Monarch, hearing these words, seemed to have a realization, his eyes displaying shock, and he muttered to himself, "So, it's really her." Chapter 482 Xingtian, Your Highness? Guwen, Longqing, Qin Chuan, and the others looked at Zhu Shi with puzzled expressions. Just how significant was this woman's background? Especially Qin Chuan, who, despite having been in the Third Medicine Valley for decades, didn't have an in-depth understanding of the valley because he was devoted to the sword Dao, spending almost all his time cultivating. In his eyes, Third Medicine Valley was a place where hidden dragons and crouching tigers lay. He Qingsong, who always spoke of all living beings to appear detached and extraordinary, was calling Zhu Shi Your Highness. Just who was Zhu Shi? Suddenly, Qin Chuan felt he had been too rash and perhaps should pay more attention to his surroundings. Zhu Shi, with her back to He Qingsong, bowed her head, tightly gripping the theory of heaven. It was clear she was struggling psychologically. After hesitating for a while, Zhu Shi still left holding the theory of heaven, leaving the onlookers even more confused. He Qingsong watched her departing figure and didn't speak further to hold her back. Instead, he furrowed his brows and fell into deep thought. Disperse now, disperse. An Xen spoke up, waving his hands at the disciples gathered around from all directions. Seeing this, the disciples could only scatter with confusion and curiosity still in their minds. Longqing approached He Qingsong and curiously asked, "What is Zhu Zai's background? Tell me about it." Although He Qingsong's origins were unclear, he never feared danger within the Third Medicine Valley. He Qingsong glanced at Longqing and said, "She has many backgrounds and you should have heard of her title in one lifetime. She is known as the Xingtian." After saying that, He Qingsong turned and left. Xingtian? Longqing was stunned, as were Guwen, Qin Chuan and others, including some disciples who hadn't walked far. They were shocked too. The name of Xingtian was known by all. Who didn't know it belonged to the strongest being in the Holy Court, the mightiest in the celestial spirit great world? Whether Xingtian or supporting Dao Sword Venerable was stronger was hard to judge for all living beings. After the disappearance of Xingtian, supporting Dao Sword Venerable emerged, and the two never confronted each other. Of course, those of higher realms all knew that supporting Dao Sword Venerable far surpassed Xingtian in cultivation level. Regardless, Xingtian made an indescribable impression on the beings of the celestial spirit great world. Many life forms equated Xingtian with Zhangtian. Blood Prison Great Saint looked up and couldn't help asking, "Master, is Zhu Shi Xingtian?" Guwen sat on his back and said nonchalantly, "Who knows? In any case, it's irrelevant to you and me. The one and only primordial swallowing yuan body." No wonder Xingtian was so powerful that she suppressed the entire great heaven and earth, deterring the celestial demon race. Guwen silently thought it was interesting. He could see that He Qingsong didn't want him to interfere with the evolution of heaven and earth. He Qingsong must be controlled by some will, specifically coming to test him, but he hadn't expected to encounter Zhu Shi. Guwen himself also didn't want to frequently interfere with the transformation of heaven and earth. His previous intervention was only because the silent destruction god emperor had targeted him in Longqing. No matter how the battle continued, he wouldn't care. He just needed to protect himself and those around him. To extinguish 99% of all living beings? Guwen looked up at the vault of heaven, his thoughts drifting. 99% seemed like a lot, but in the grand scheme of the entire celestial spirit great world, after 99% were extinguished, the remaining beings would still be vast. From another perspective, the heavenly Tao still left mercy and a sliver of hope, with the current strife providing a chance for beings to fight for a new lease on life. Compared to the transformation of heaven and earth, Guwen was now more looking forward to his own Tao practice. Being heaven-encompassing free immortal wasn't enough. He needed to keep increasing his strength, to surpass the true form of the silent destruction god emperor, surpass the celestial spirit god, surpass the immortal gods and the cosmic order hidden in the mist. The news about Zhu Shi being Xingtian didn't spread. The supreme sect acted swiftly, but Zhu Zai's life changed because of it. Every time she left her house, she encountered many people crowding around her. Even great cultivators from the Holy Court took residence in the Third Medicine Valley. Guwen stood in front of the window looking out at the bustling Medicine Valley and remarked, "There are more and more people." Shenzhen, who was preparing to paint, turned his head to look at him and asked, "Is the crowd good or bad for you?" "I used to think it was good, but recently not so much." Guwen replied, his gaze deep, pondering something unknown. Upon hearing this, Shenzhen appeared contemplative. The brush she had been hesitating to lay down finally made its mark. After observing the scenery of Medicine Valley for a while, Guwen turned around and walked to the desk to look at Shenzhen's painting. It was a landscape painting depicting mountains with waterfalls, buildings next to the waterfall, and a medicine garden below, where someone was sowing seeds. Not far away, a cow and a fat rat were chasing each other. "Are you painting me?" Guan asked curiously. Shenzhen replied, I don't know why, but such a scene suddenly appeared in my mind, becoming increasingly clear. This could be where you'll live in the future." Guan didn't respond, his gaze rested on the cliff above the waterfall. He saw a figure in white, seemingly a woman, looking down at the medicine garden from atop the cliff. He couldn't help but wonder who was this woman. He didn't ask, nor did he try to calculate it. When Shenzhen finished the painting, she suddenly exclaimed, "Oh, how come I've painted a woman? Who is this?" Guan rolled his eyes and said, "You painted it and you're asking me?" Shenzhen picked up the painting, remarking, "I always feel like this painting is from the far, far future." Guan teased, "What? You can predict the future now?" "Don't say that, it's actually possible. Many of the images are things I haven't experienced, and they don't match the present or the past. Maybe I have begun to achieve enlightenment after you taught me, but what I've achieved is not the way of cause and effect," Shenzhen said seriously. Guan smiled but did not argue. Shenzhen indeed had already begun to step into the initial understanding of the Great Tao. What she contemplated was not the way of cause and effect, but the way of fate. Having stepped into enlightenment, Shenzhen had surpassed all living beings. Many experts of the immortal Tao spent their entire lives unable to achieve enlightenment, including the divine thought true immortal. Shenzhen continued to share her dreams, revealing her insights into the way of fate. Guan listened intently, understanding that even though his cultivation level was higher, he might still find inspiration in her insights. Outside the supreme sect, on a mountaintop, a man in a black robe stood with his sword in his arms, his white hair fluttering in the wind. Beside him stood a dozen cultivators, each exuding an extraordinary aura and holding various magical treasures. "My lord, the supreme sect is just ahead. Is the supporting Tao sword venerable really not going to intervene in this opportunity?" A masked woman asked the man in the black robe, nervously. They had lived for many years, having experienced the supporting Tao sword venerable struggles against the profound desolate demon god and the silent destruction god emperor, and held a deep reverence for him from the bottom of their hearts. An elder spoke up, "The supporting Tao sword venerable has released the theory of heaven as a statement of intent. We just need to ensure that we don't harm the innocent." The rest echoed his sentiments, their words filled with a longing for the theory of heaven. The man in the black robe's face was indifferent. He spoke calmly, "Once we arrive at the supreme sect, we must first visit someone. You should be aware of the supporting Tao sword venerable's stance." As the words fell, a rainbow light swept across the celestial vault above him, quickly disappearing into the horizon. The masked woman frowned and asked, "Was that the Nine Extreme Saint God?" The man in the black robe replied, "Indeed it was. I didn't expect such an arrogant man to also pursue the theory of heaven. It seems he now knows his celestial mandate." He leapt up, turning into a wisp of black mist, soaring towards the horizon, with the others quickly following suit. Meanwhile, in the third medicine valley within a forest, Zhu Shi stood face to face with Zhu Luo Sword Monarch, who looked with interest at the theory of heaven in her hand. "Xingtian, do you really wish to yield this opportunity to me? The sword venerable has entrusted it to you, perhaps he sees potential in you." Zhu Shi shook her head, "I am not the Xingtian you speak of. All I know is that I can't keep it safe now. Since the sword venerable does not wish to deal with the repercussions, I shall give it to you. You are strong enough, perhaps you can claim the true immortal inheritance." Hearing this, Zhu Luo Sword Monarch sneered derisively, and with a wave of his right hand, the theory of heaven was drawn into his possession through the air. "Xingtian, why are you so cowardly in this life? Is it because you haven't awakened your memory? But that shouldn't be the reason. No matter how many times one reincarnates, one's nature doesn't change," Zhu Luo Sword Monarch taunted. Zhu Shi didn't answer, but instead she exhaled deeply. Seeing her so meek, Zhu Luo Sword Monarch found it dull. He followed with a leap, turning into a beam of sword light and vanishing. "I am Zhu Luo Sword Monarch, holding the theory of heaven. Those who seek immortal fate shall challenge me." Zhu Luo Sword Monarch's domineering voice echoed between heaven and earth. At the same time, a vast sword intent erupted from afar. Zhu Shi turned her head to look, but Zhu Luo Sword Monarch's figure was nowhere to be seen. She thought to herself, "Luckily there are still fools. No, I must leave the supreme sect." She glanced in the direction of Guan's pavilion, hesitating for a moment before offering a salute to Guan from across the distance. Master, forgive me. I'm not only saving myself but also don't want to cause you any trouble. With that, she didn't look back as she ran towards the valley exit. Chapter 483, The True Immortal Inside the Attic. Guan was reading a book, his divine sense watching Shi leave the third medicine valley. This girl's temperament. Guan didn't quite know what to say about it. Could he really call her a fellow practitioner when he himself wasn't this timid? He didn't forcibly stop Zhu Zai's decision. Perhaps he truly could protect her. But these past few years, Shi had clearly been uncomfortable, especially after her identity as Xingtian was revealed. Her heart was tormented, and Guan could hear the anxious voices within her. So be it. Let her go then. After all, she's a Saint Heaven reincarnation. She should be able to turn danger into safety. But does she think that I can't resist the heavenly Tao? Guan thought to himself, not with a sense of regret but pondering. He wasn't arrogant enough to think he was invincible. There was still so much he couldn't do, and every time he encountered such things he felt motivated. He could keep saving the celestial spirit great world, but he couldn't yet see through the heavenly Tao behind the scenes. The heaven-encompassing free immortal might be able to do as he pleased within the universe, but only within the universe. What lies beyond the universe? Guan continued reading while pondering these questions. He didn't attempt to divine Zhu Zai's future fortunes. Ever since the incident with Xiaochuan's reincarnation, had tried not to predict the future as much as possible, to avoid knowing too much and wanting to change things, bringing about more variables. Actually, not knowing the future might be a good thing. At least it leaves room for anticipation. Guan had sought too much foresight before, and it made him feel life was dull. Perhaps in the next era, I can consider staying somewhere else. Guan silently thought, the corners of his mouth curving upwards. He too started looking forward to the future, to a completely new life. As autumn gave way to winter, the snow blanketed the land in white. In the mountain god temple within the North Sea mountain ridge, profound mysterious Zhenren stood on the eaves, gazing at the distant battle in the sky. The fierce wind raged, the forest shook violently, wave after wave, a sight of magnificent grandeur. Yet profound mysterious Zhenren's figure was immovable, his eyes shining brightly. Despite having stood guard here for over 1,000 years, making his Tao heart even more steadfast deep down, he still harbored the blood of one who longed for power. He was the most talented individual in the history of Mount Sanqing. It was just too bad that Li Ye had stolen his thunder, becoming the most celebrated prodigy of the Li family in Mount Sanqing. Nevertheless, staying here hadn't halted his progress. With the help of the mountain god, he had achieved nirvana and stood on the eaves with the demeanor of an immortal. Inside the courtyard, a Taoist child around 12 or 13 years old squatted in front of the pill furnace, fanning the flame. Wisps of blue smoke drifted up. From time to time, he wiped sweat from his brow or looked up at profound mysterious Zhenren on the eaves. After a good while, the Taoist child couldn't help but ask, "Master, what are you watching? Isn't this fierce wind just a natural wind of the world?" The forest was dense and he could not see the situation at the horizon, thinking it might rain soon. Profound mystery Zhenren replied, "It's nothing, your teacher was just watching two sparrows fighting. As for this wind, there are plenty of strange winds in the North Sea mountain ridge. You'll encounter them yourself later on." The Taoist child's eyes widened and he asked curiously, "Such a big wind and there are still sparrows fighting? I've never seen sparrows fight before. I want to watch too. Just focus on refining your pills and don't forget why you came." Profound mystery Zhenren answered offhandedly, and the Taoist child could only pout in response. The Taoist child followed up with a question, "Master, why hasn't the mountain god appeared yet?" "He will appear when it's time. Perhaps your heart is not sincere enough." "Then, Master, is the true immortal inheritance those people talked about a few days ago real? Why don't they believe in the mountain god?" "You'll understand when you grow up. Many people are not in pursuit of the responsibilities of immortal gods, they just seek the power of immortal gods. You should also think carefully about what kind of person you truly want to become." Profound mystery Zhenren spoke calmly, his tone like a breeze that settled the Taoist child's heart into tranquility. Even the persistent strong winds could not disrupt the tranquility within the courtyard. A figure entered the temple precinct. It was He Qingsong. He Qingsong first looked at profound mystery Zhenren on the eaves, then turned his gaze to the Taoist child. Profound mystery Zhenren turned his head to look at He Qingsong, frowning. For some reason he felt very uncomfortable the moment he saw He Qingsong. That feeling was strange even to him. Do I give you a very uncomfortable sensation? He Qingsong asked, his gaze then drifting towards Profound Mystery Jinren. Profound Mystery Jinren appeared out of nowhere in front of him, and the Taoist child looked nervously at He Qingsong, thinking to himself, could this person be a demon? Who are you and what brings you here? Profound Mystery Jinren stared at He Qingsong and asked. He Qingsong answered, my name is He Qingsong. The name isn't important. The significance of this body is to act for great heaven and earth. You've been too close to an existence that conflicts with heavenly Tao, which is why you subconsciously feel hostility towards me. This is also the emotion you experience after facing the will of heavenly Tao's rejection. What do you mean? Who is rejected by the heavenly Tao? Profound Mystery Jinren frowned. He Qingsong, unchanging in expression, said, you know very well who he is. I can only tell you that there truly are immortals in the world, but he is not one. Immortals, being high above, cannot be glimpsed by mortal spirits. You've already entered the nirvana realm and are on the path to pursue immortality. You should revere immortals. Profound Mystery Jinren coldly said, aren't immortals supposed to be the protectors of all beings? Why must they clearly delineate themselves from sentient beings? That's just the thinking of mortals. Who said immortals have to protect sentient beings? Immortals create living beings, create heaven and earth, create everything. In the eyes of immortals, all things are equal. Your current resentment is misguided. The current suffering of sentient beings is due to their excessive pressure on heaven and earth, which is the self-protective consciousness of heaven and earth. The unending calamities are just because heaven and earth want to unload the burden. Sentient beings are that burden. And immortals recognize and support heaven and earth in shedding that burden. The words of He Qingsong made Profound Mystery Jinren's face turn ugly, and they rocked his Tao heart. Are mortals really like that? He Qingsong lifted his right hand, and a broken piece of white jade appeared in it. He spoke with sincere gravity, you have a heart of great compassion rare in this world. You are indeed destined for an immortal fate. This jade is called Celestial Tao Jade. It can avert all tragedies, but it also requires a price to be paid. I gift this jade to you. Whether to use it and how to use it is up to you. As his words fell, the Celestial Tao Jade flew into the hands of Profound Mystery Jinren. Seeing He Qingsong turn to leave, Profound Mystery Jinren asked, did you choose me because of him? Without stopping, He Qingsong said without looking back, your heart yearns for the immortal, and actually the immortal can also feel it. To use your own words to your disciple just now, you can't feel the immortal simply because the time has not yet come. If you want to become an immortal, you must understand everything, must go through tribulations of the mortal world. Only when you are not swayed by emotions do you qualify to become an immortal. After stepping out the door, he disappeared into thin air as if he had never been there. Profound Mystery Jinren looked down at the Celestial Tao Jade in his hand, his brow deeply furrowed. The Taoist child came to his side, curiously looking at the Celestial Tao Jade, asking, Master, is what he said the truth? Is the mountain god not an immortal? Clutching the Celestial Tao Jade, Profound Mystery Jinren took a deep breath and said, Disciple, your teacher will teach you a lesson today. Do not listen to what others say, look at what they do. Your faith should not be defined by anyone else. Whatever you believe in, that is the truth. Chapter 484 Savior in the Hidden Spirit Palace. Guan watched as Chen Luo sparred with the deep-sea dragon carp, his mood lifted by the words of Profound Mysterious Jinren. He hadn't chosen the wrong person. As for He Qingsong, he didn't pay much attention to him because he saw many people like He Qingsong spreading the concept of immortality everywhere, and their numbers were growing. It was as if they had suddenly come to a realization, their bodies entwined with the Celestial Tao destiny. These individuals wanted to convince all living beings of the existence of immortals and to revere the heavenly Tao. Because of this, they intended to topple everything, to knock down the images of Holy Court, supporting Tao Sword Venerable, and Yang Immortal Emperor as the strongest figures in the hearts of the people, making them understand that the heavenly Tao decides everything. According to this trend, given enough time, all beings would believe in the heavenly Tao, believe in destiny, and any powerful existence would also fall in the hearts of the people, planting a seed in their minds. Apart from the heavenly Tao and immortals, nothing is eternal. There would no more be a ruling force as enduring as the Holy Court, because even those in the Holy Court would believe that it could be overturned, as long as the celestial mandate was with them. Bang! Chen Luo hit the ground hard, causing the surface to cave in and form a web-like fissure. Drained of spiritual power and chi power, his long hair was disheveled as he let out a breath, unable to stand up again. Su Ling appeared by his side. She did not pity Chen Luo but instead teased him. See, debasing your own cultivation level, even if you've recovered now, your strength isn't what it used to be. The 100 years you've missed might take even longer to make up for. Chen Luo gave a bitter smile. I really was too impulsive before. After you died, all I could think about was chasing after you. Hearing this, Su Ling's teasing mood dissolved. She squatted, helping him up. The deep-sea dragon carp, clad in white, descended from the sky. Though he still appeared feminine, his temperament was no longer as fragile as before. The arrival of Chen Luo had deepened his understanding of gender differences, and he too was in search of his true self. You are very capable. If our cultivation levels were equal, I might not be your match, the deep-sea dragon carp said earnestly. Supported by Su Ling, Chen Luo smiled bitterly. Don't comfort me, I know the gap between us is big. Don't worry, I won't be discouraged. The deep-sea dragon carp didn't know what to say as he indeed was comforting Chen Luo. During their previous sparring he did not feel any pressure. Guan lay in a rocking chair, beginning to close his eyes to rest. In every medicine valley and dojo, there were people cultivating, and he was anticipating the roles these individuals would play in the future. Being the heaven-encompassing free immortal, even though he couldn't directly extend the limit of others' lifespans, his influence would ensure that those around him were stronger than what their original destiny dictated. It wasn't that geniuses were gravitating toward Guan, but rather he was creating geniuses, and those who successfully approached him were great fortune seekers. He was the strongest in the celestial spirit great world, and no matter how much he remained hidden, he would influence the entire world. After chatting for a while, the deep-sea dragon carp, Chen Luo, and Su Ling began discussing their aspirations. Chen Luo simply wanted to become stronger to protect his son, Chen Xuan. Su Ling had greater ambitions. She sought revenge. The deep-sea dragon carp wanted to unify the ocean and establish order to better protect the hidden spirit palace. Beneath the blue sky, the ocean churned majestically. Zhu Luo Sword Monarch stood proudly above the clouds, a book of theory of heaven floating in front of him. With a smile lift at the corners of his mouth and an arrogant expression, he looked down disdainfully at the more than a dozen people below him. Your theories of heaven now belong to me. Scram, you trash. Even if you cultivate for 10 million more years, you'll never be worthy of touching the theory of heaven. Zhu Luo Sword Monarch spoke bluntly, his words filled with mockery. Despite his peaceful demeanor in the Third Medicine Valley, upon his arrival, he even dared to challenge supporting Dao Sword Venerable. The faces of the man in the black robe and his followers were extremely ugly. They all had injuries and some were even reduced to just souls. Filled with anger and fear, they glared at Zhu Luo Sword Monarch. The overwhelming power of Zhu Luo Sword Monarch left them in despair, and at that moment, none dared to speak. They could only look towards the man in the black robe, waiting for him to make a decision. The man in the black robe looked at the sword in his hand, its blade enveloped by a faint layer of sword chi. The sword chi was so heavy that he felt it was impossible for him in this lifetime to match Zhu Luo Sword Monarch in the sword Dao. He took a deep breath and said, "Retreat." After he spoke, he turned and left, with the other cultivators hastily following him. In the distance, on an island, a group of cultivators and great demons gathered, discussing the recent great battle, and Yang Jian was also present. Yang Jian gazed at Zhu Luo Sword Monarch from afar, filled with emotion. What a powerful sword Dao. He even felt that Zhu Luo Sword Monarch was invincible. However, the thought that Zhu Luo Sword Monarch had once stayed in the Third Medicine Valley for hundreds of years made him speculate just how high his master's Dao practice might be. It was said that the Saint Heaven reincarnation also appeared in the Third Medicine Valley and apprenticed under his master. Yang Jian's heart began to waver, suddenly doubting whether leaving the Third Medicine Valley had been a mistake. If he had stayed, might he have encountered greater opportunities? He could not be sure, but he could at least confirm one thing. The cultivation techniques and divine skills his master had taught him were enough to let him surpass reincarnation. Zhu Luo Sword Monarch now holds 6 volumes of the theory of heaven, and he is not far from receiving the true immortal inheritance. He doesn't even seem to be looking for the theory of heaven, simply waiting for others to challenge him. It is said that he has reached the 9th heaven of the immortal path. I've heard that he comes from another great heaven and earth, but was suppressed by the supporting Dao Sword Venerable as soon as he arrived. Although supporting Dao Sword Venerable is strong, he isn't the divinely appointed savior. It's unclear if this person might be the savior. Hearing the surrounding discussions, Yang Jian frowned. He could feel the reverence the world held for his master weakening, as people began to hope for another savior. Knowing his master would welcome such a development, but he also felt that some force behind the scenes was driving this trend, which did not bode well. As seasons changed and time passed, 200 years quickly went by. At the edge of the Third Medicine Valley, inside a small pavilion on a mountaintop, Guan and LV Badian sat facing each other, drinking wine. Guan listened to LV Badian's complaints while silently calling up his attribute panel. Name, Guan, lifespan, 1913/7 450 227 042, physique, primordial infinite body, cultivation level, Luotian Zizai immortal realm perfection, 7,450,000,000 years lifespan. Getting closer and closer to 10 billion years, it had been a long time since he had activated the lifespan feature, and he didn't know what kind of feature would unlock this time. At the same time, Guan was also contemplating when to break through and where to go for the breakthrough. He had an intuition that another breakthrough might alert the celestial spirit god or even the mysterious group of immortal gods. Although the lifespan barrier could hide his presence, if he were the celestial spirit god and sensed a threat, he would certainly do everything possible to eliminate potential threats, and he now had a substantial reputation that required caution. LV Badian looked up at Guan and asked, "Guan, what do you think? Do you think they're being too greedy?" Chapter 485, Land of Reincarnation. Upon hearing LV Badian's inquiry, Guan withdrew his thoughts and replied, "Indeed, I was too greedy. Supreme Sect had its eye on the true immortal inheritance, wanting to win over Ju Luo Sword Monarch or to persuade Guan to leave the true immortal inheritance within Supreme Sect, even if it was just for his disciples." Faced with Guan's answer, LV Badian's face immediately showed a bit of embarrassment. He felt insecure, suspecting that nothing could escape Guan's all-seeing eye. Although he had rejected the Elder Hall's proposal, he hadn't been resolute. If Guan had been secretly observing, he might have seen right through his intentions. As Supreme Sect was rapidly strengthening, those who had experienced the entire process of its development inevitably became arrogant, and LV Badian was no exception. Even though he always reminded himself to be humble and to be grateful to Guan, faced with greater temptations, he couldn't help but fantasize. Would Supreme Sect not have hoped to replace the Holy Court, the Immortal Dynasty, if they were to produce a true immortal? It was evident to the discerning that both the Immortal Dynasty and the Holy Court were going to collapse, with the Celestial Mandate belonging to other sections. In these 200 years, the talk of Celestial Mandate had spread widely, even within Supreme Sect, leading many to believe without doubt, including LV Badian. LV Badian felt that the Celestial Mandate was upon Supreme Sect. He believed no other sects in the world could rival Supreme Sect's rate of growth. Though the Profound Abyss Divine Dynasty and Celestial Demon Great Sect were strong, those were powers descended from outer heaven, not a product of normal development. Watching the changes in LV Badian's expression, Guan also felt a wave of emotion. Truly, times change and people with them. However, he could understand the thoughts of Supreme Sect's upper echelons. For over 1,000 years after learning of Guan's true identity, Supreme Sect tried its best not to bother him and even helped him deal with many unnecessary trivialities. Perhaps Supreme Sect thought that seizing the true immortal inheritance was just a small effort for Guan, not very time-consuming. But Guan was tired of it. He owed Supreme Sect no favors. He had long since repaid the grace of their past protection. Guan spoke up, "Life is like the tide and people chase the waves, pursuing the destination of the Celestial Mandate. You wish for it too and I don't mind, but wanting the Celestial Mandate depends on yourselves. I am powerless to help." Upon hearing this, LV Badian involuntarily opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but found himself unable to speak. Guan raised his right hand, revealing startling black lines in his palm. "What is this?" LV Badian's eyes widened as he asked nervously. Guan was not just the faith of Supreme Sect, but also his backbone. If something happened to Guan, how could he remain calm? Guan said, "This is the consequence of intervening too much. If my cultivation dissipates and I become a cripple in the future, I wonder if Supreme Sect will still have a piece of Medicine Valley for me to live out my days?" LV Badian's face paled dramatically. He had not expected Guan to have such a hidden ailment. But on second thought, considering the powerful enemies Guan had faced for Supreme Sect, for all living beings, it was not unthinkable that he would be injured. LV Badian panicked, more than he had ever been in his life. He hadn't panicked when ousted by the vice sect leader or when forced into feigned death. He hadn't panicked when misunderstood by his son, or even when his son spoke of killing him. But now, suddenly unsure of what to do, his heart was filled with shame and regret. He knew only to ask of Guan, never once inquiring about the pressure Guan faced. If he had known sooner, maybe Guan's injury would not have been so severe? Guan teased, "Sect leader, if I were to be crippled, would you still be willing to transfer power to me?" LV Badian wanted to comfort him, but thinking of the gap between their realms, he felt he lacked the standing to offer consolation. "Of course I would," he said laughing. "I am not in the integration realm now, but the Mahayana realm, which is sufficient for you to live out the rest of your life in ease, though the position of sect leader might be uncertain, considering even I have to rely on you for my standing." With the resources of the supreme sect, he smoothly reached the Mahayana realm, but his cultivation level was quite embarrassing for someone in the position of sect leader. Guano laughed, "That's true. A sect leader in the Mahayana realm is rather disgraceful. My cultivation speed isn't slow, and it's not like everyone can be like an Hao. If I ever lose my cultivation, I'll change my name and surname and from then on, call me Elder Gu. Sure, when the time comes I'll accompany you." The two laughed and talked as if they had returned to over 1,000 years ago. Guan was just trying to scare LV Badian, but he didn't expect LV Badian to take it to heart. That was good too. It was time for the entire supreme sect to have an awakening. Relying on one person was not good for the sect. 2 hours later, as twilight descended, LV Badian left with a resolute expression on his face, as if he was going to report something to the Elder Hall. Guan then turned his head to look at the Third Medicine Valley. From the top of the mountain, the Third Medicine Valley was truly magnificent. Wherever he went in the future, he would have to take the Third Medicine Valley with him. After all, it was the fruit of his labor for 1,800 years. After sitting alone in the pavilion for a while, Guan stood up and walked down the mountain. The setting sun shone on him, and as he descended the mountain, he gradually became dim. Upon returning to the valley, Guan stopped under the attic. Looking into the distance, Qin Chuan was sparring with Long Qing, drawing crowds of disciples to watch and cheer. Qin Chuan had a strand of celestial Tao destiny about him, very faint, hard to detect, but it sure existed. Guan glanced once and continued upstairs. "Master, Elder Li of the Inner Sect Refining Hall is about to host a birthday feast for his 2000th year, and he has sent someone to invite you," the Blood Prison Great Saint spoke up. That Elder Li was an old friend of Guan's for 1,000 years, and after living past 2,000 years, he would face his mortality in not too many years. "I understand," replied Guan. "Go and find an Exin, tell her to prepare a gift." "Okay." Blood Prison Great Saint immediately rose and went off in pursuit of Enzin's aura. After Guan went upstairs, he sat down at the desk, turning his head to look out the window. After Elder Li's passing, Guan's true friends would be very few. He was still popular now, but more people came to him for his power. When Guan became friends with Elder Li, the Third Medicine Valley was not famous, and the apparent gap in their cultivation levels wasn't significant. It started as a chance meeting at an inn, both fond of Cyan Heroes travelogue, talking for a long time before forming a bond. A new era really is coming. Guan murmured to himself, feeling the old times and old friends fading away. He didn't dwell on it, instead he extended his divine sense across the universe. Choosing the place for his breakthrough was what he should care about the most at the moment. As his divine sense probed, he saw a powerful force emerging in the silent extinction domain, even flying the flag of the battle court, having already ruled over a dozen great heaven and earths. The strongest in the battle court was at the late stage of the profound Yuan-free immortal realm, a minor level higher than Sword Guming had been before. They were expanding towards the direction of the celestial spirit great world, and it was only a matter of time before they would wage war. Looking around, Guan felt that to make a breakthrough, he still needed to look for a place within the reincarnation vortex. The reincarnation vortex connected to many great heaven and earths located in this universe, just that they were very far apart. However, the reincarnation vortex also led to the land of reincarnation, the destination of souls, unreachable even for free immortals. Nevertheless, the heaven-encompassing free immortal could capture traces of the reincarnation. Otherwise, for the next breakthrough, go to the land of reincarnation? As this thought took hold, Guan's eyes brightened even more. Chapter 486. Behave domineeringly. Yi Tianji. Within the dim void, dense fog swirled, with nebulae faintly visible here and there. Within the source of the light hung a grand hall, with 9 suns suspended above it, arrayed in a fan shape. Beneath the 9 suns, a black throne stood upon a high platform, upon which an imposing figure sat. He was clad in armor, with a broad physique, wearing a divine crown reminiscent of a Chilan's head, from which emerged his cold and authoritative countenance. White hair fluttered at the sides of his face, as he supported his head with one hand in a languid pose, continually exhaling turbid breath like a true dragon taking a brief rest. A bolt of lightning struck from the depths of darkness, hitting the grand hall and transforming into a winged man. He was dressed in dark cyan Taoist robes, with a grim expression and long hair cascading freely, resembling a fierce ghost. In front of the seated figure, the winged man seemed so diminutive, like facing a towering mountain. "My lord, it appears that the power of the immortal gods is intervening in this universe." The winged man spoke with a grave tone, clearly wary of the immortal gods. The seated figure slowly opened his eyes, his pupils gold in color, which made him look even more majestic and overwhelming. Immortal gods? Ridiculous, in this great thousand world there is but one immortal god. He would not interfere in internal strife. Besides, this great thousand world betrayed the immortal god in the past. The dissatisfaction of the immortal god with this world is not so easily dissipated. His gaze shifted to the depths of the universe, the scenery of the celestial spirit great world reflecting in his pupils. Hearing this, the winged man frowned and asked, "Do you mean someone is masquerading in the name of the immortal gods?" The seated figure replied, "Both the heavenly Tao and the immortal gods wield their power despotically. They would not engage in so many roundabout tactics. However, it is just as well, let them test the depth of the celestial spirit great world. Our task is to capture the remnants of the Long clan." The winged man pressed on, "But within the celestial spirit great world lies the celestial Tao golden core. Why not take it for ourselves?" The seated figure did not respond again and simply closed his eyes. The grand hall fell into silence, the 9 suns still blazing fiercely, bringing endless light to the void. Suddenly, the winged man seemed to sense something, swiftly turning around to look, only to see in the deep darkness of the void a pair of vast eyes staring back at them. Those eyes were like the eyes of the universe, making the nebulae in their presence pale in comparison. The descendant of the Long clan is indeed in the celestial spirit great world, and he will vie for the celestial mandate. A voice ancient and strong resounded. This voice was unmistakably He Qingsong's, but it was stronger, as though a supreme deity proclaiming the laws of the world to all living beings. The seated figure opened his eyes and looked, mocking, "So it's you. I hadn't expected you to still not have given up the chase." The vast eyes in the void continued, "Yi Tianji, we could join forces. Perhaps the people of the Long clan are hiding under the employ of the supporting Tao Sword Venerable. If so, you cannot avoid dealing with him, an entity even the silent destruction god emperor suffered a setback from. I promote the celestial mandate, and you eradicate the enemy's remnants. Our actions do not conflict." The figure referred to as Yi Tianji remained unflustered, merely staring calmly at those eyes, his thoughts inscrutable. The void returned to silence once more. "Unless you tell me exactly who the descendant of the Long clan is, I shall not readily believe you," Yi Tianji finally spoke. The vast eyes in the void narrowed slightly, hearing Yi Tianji continue, "But you have another option. You could concede the celestial Tao golden core to me. I might then consider assisting you." The celestial Tao golden core. The expression in the eyes of the void suddenly turned cold, while Yi Tianji closed his eyes again. The winged man on the grand hall could not help but smile, looking mockingly at the vast eyes in the void, waiting for a decision. For a long time, the voice of the void's great eye spoke, "Not now. When the celestial Tao golden core appears, I will not stop you but let you enter." Upon hearing this, Yi Tianji's face revealed a defiant smile. Another 30 years had passed. At the age of 1943, Guan was playing chess with the 9-fingered divine monarch, holding the green hero travelogue in one hand and a chess piece in the other, his eyes on the book. The nearly defeated 9-fingered divine monarch raised his eyes to Guan and said dissatisfied, "Do you need to treat our chess games so dismissively?" Guan replied, "Please, you're the one who insisted on playing with me." Although profound celestial intent was a nirvana realm great cultivator, his reputation had been drowned out by the increasing number of great cultivators in the supreme sect. He seldom returned from his travels and would send Guan books from time to time. Guan was reading firsthand new releases, and by the time he finished, the Green Hero travelogue would only then start circulating in the market. This volume of the story was particularly brilliant. The hero encountered a woman with deep-seated enmity toward him. They chased each other at sea and ultimately encountered an attack from a great demon. Both were poisoned and temporarily lost their cultivation levels. They ended up stranded on a deserted island, entangled in love and hate. Even without other characters, watching their interactions with the island's demons was also very intriguing. Zhu Luo Sword Monarch holds 8 volumes of the Theory of Heaven and is just missing the last one. He waits inside his Zizai Sword City, saying that if he loses he will surrender all 8 volumes. Yet even so, the final volume of the Theory of Heaven has not revealed itself. The 9-fingered Divine Monarch sighed and his face was filled with admiration when he mentioned Zhu Luo Sword Monarch. His realm was worlds apart from Zhu Luo Sword Monarch, which is why he held such reverence. Furthermore, having played chess with him before, he felt a connection and especially paid attention to news about Zhu Luo Sword Monarch. Guan casually asked, "What? Are you very interested in the true immortal inheritance? You could challenge him too. What if you won?" "How could I possibly win? I'm just at the wandering immortal realm, while he exists at the 9th heaven of the immortal path. I could cultivate for tens of thousands of years and still might not reach his level," said the 9-fingered Divine Monarch, his eyes wide. Seeing that he did not want to continue the chess game and was changing the subject, Guan said irritably, "Tens of thousands of years? Do you think you can live that long?" The 9-fingered Divine Monarch was so annoyed that he stood up and left with a flick of his sleeve. Guan curled his lip and thought to himself that he really lacked sportsmanship in chess. He stood up and walked towards the outside of the dojo. Along the way, disciples and cultivators who saw him all paid their respects. He walked toward the mouth of the valley, where a woman was pacing at this moment. This woman was Yi Lan's disciple, Yi Qingxue. Nearly 1,000 years old, she had reached the divinity transformation realm cultivation level. 2,000 years ago, she could have roamed freely across the continent, but in today's supreme sect, a cultivation level of divinity transformation realm was not as prestigious as some exceptionally talented new disciples. Dressed in a yellow robe, Yi Qingxue saw Guan's figure from afar, and she was immediately filled with joy. Just as she was about to step forward, she hesitated again. As a child, she had been disrespectful and hostile towards Guan. She felt that her master, being so powerful, shouldn't have to curry favor with Guan. But ever since she realized that Guan was the supporting Dao Sword Venerable, she understood how ridiculous she had been. Because of this, she dared not see Guan anymore. Since her master's death, she had kept this relationship secret and did not speak of it. Apart from the Elder Hall, no one knew of her relation to Guan. Seeing Guan walking towards her, Yi Qingxue felt nervous and apprehensive. Could it be that her uncle master had foreseen her coming and had specifically come to meet her? She thought it highly likely, given that her uncle master was the supporting Dao Sword Venerable. But she also feared that she might be overthinking it. With her relationship with her uncle master not being particularly close, he certainly had many similar relationships. Surely he couldn't take special care of every junior? Yi Qingxue stood there, extremely anxious, feeling caught between a rock and a hard place. Chapter 487. Changes in the world. As Guan approached, Yi Qingxue still didn't dare to greet him, but the nearby disciples came over to pay their respects and greet him. Third Medicine Valley was now home to many disciples, all of them cultivators who required space for practicing their spells. Even Qi absorption cultivation needed space, hence, around Third Medicine Valley, one could always see people, especially near the entrance that represented the main gate of Medicine Valley. The closer Guan got, the more nervous Yi Qingxue became, hearing nothing but her own breathing and heartbeat. She held power within her subsect as well, and she was considered a talent. Years of experience had rendered her calm in handling matters, so why was she so nervous at this moment? She didn't understand. She could only secretly chide and blame herself. "Now that you are here, why not come in? Must your master uncle come out to fetch you personally? You're making quite the entrance, even grander than the sect leader." Guan's light laughter reached her ears, startling her into looking up and meeting his gaze. She quickly raised her hand in salute, her voice trembling as she spoke. "Greetings, Master Uncle. Let's go. I happen to be free today," Guan said with a smile. Before Yi Lan passed away, the only thing she was worried about was Yi Qingxue, as she was the disciple Yi Lan had personally raised, which was evident from their shared surname. "Go? Where'd?" Yi Qingxue asked nervously, her heart surprisingly lifted, not expecting her master uncle to still remember her and treating her with the same gentle attitude as before. She had thought that after her master's death, his brother would no longer show her kindness. "To resolve your troubles," Guan answered and began walking out of Medicine Valley. Yi Qingxue was stunned for a moment, then quickly followed his pace. She caught up to Guwen's side and asked, "But I haven't mentioned my troubles? How do you know?" Guwen glanced at her and laughed. "You are also a cultivator. Do you think the immortals you look up to can't predict the future?" Yi Qingxue was shocked. Guwen then took her flying toward the sect's main city. Their flight wasn't too fast, and along the way he inquired about how she had been these past years, quickly easing the tension in her heart. After dropping her guard, Yi Qingxue began to discuss the difficulties she had encountered. Her disciple was exceptionally talented and caught the eye of a great cultivator who attempted to recruit her. Failing to persuade her, he kidnapped her. She wanted to seek Zhen Qin's help, but Zhen Qin had been out on a journey for hundreds of years, leaving her no way to find her. After much deliberation, she decided to turn to Guwen. Guwen knew she was telling the truth, and he also marveled inwardly at the fearsome nature of heavenly Tao. Hundreds of years ago, noble families within the sect wouldn't dare scheme against anyone linked to him by karma, but now, those in the upper echelons of these families believed he feared the heavenly Tao and would no longer take action. Of course they still acted cautiously, not harming Yi Qingxue. If supporting Tao Sword Venerable really decided to act, they could pretend they were unaware of this connection. This family, surnamed Qin, held formidable power within the supreme sect. Even the leader of the subsect bore the name Qin. They had mastered an evil skill, collecting 99 gifted individuals destined for great fortunes and transferring all their destiny and talent to another individual, creating the strongest of the Qin family to compete for the celestial mandate. The old ancestor of the Qin family was a divine immortal of wondrous dharma, with inconspicuous cultivation level but well known by many for their possession of celestial and earthly immortals. The bustling scenes caused by the Qin family allowing these immortals into the supreme sect had greatly boosted their reputation. The evil skill of the Qin family was naturally a secret, and they dared not practice such deeds within the supreme sect. Therefore Yi Qingxue's disciple had been transferred to an isolated island overseas. After Yi Qingxue finished speaking, she looked at Guwen with pleading eyes. To her, the Qin family was a colossal entity that could not be shaken. She had mobilized all her connections, even reporting to the law enforcement hall, but all efforts vanished without a trace. She had also received warnings, but for some reason the Qin family hadn't taken action against her. Guwen continued forward, his gaze fixed on the path ahead, the breeze fluttering his robe. He spoke. "Qingxue, do you feel that the changes within the supreme sect are significant? Are the changes in this world significant?" Yi Qingxue was perplexed and didn't understand why Guwen suddenly asked such a question. After a moment of consideration she said, "The changes are naturally significant. Aren't all things in the world changing? Every place has its dark corners, and my disciples' experiences are just an exception, and won't affect my sense of belonging to the supreme sect." Guwen glanced at her, a smile spreading across his face. Yi Qingxue thought Guwen was satisfied with her answer and a smile also appeared on her face. With a senior brother stepping forward, there would surely be hope for her disciple. The pressure that had enveloped her for several days dissipated, and she began to think about how to repay her senior brother. Half an hour later, Guwen and his companion finally arrived at the Elder Hall in the sect's main city. This place was the power center of the supreme sect, and its influence was even greater than that of the sect master's mansion. In front of the grand doors of the Elder Hall stood two 10-meter-tall Qilin stone statues, lifelike and imposing, giving an overwhelming sense of oppression. Looking at the three characters on the plaque, Yi Qingxue became nervous again. She had been here hundreds of years ago, accompanying Yi Lan on some errand, and the important figures in the hall had left a deep impression on her with their commanding aura. The disciple guarding the door, seeing Guwen walking straight towards it, subconsciously meant to ask questions. He had just taken a step when a voice reached his ears, causing his face to change dramatically, and with a thud, he knelt down. It wasn't just him, the other gate-guarding disciples also knelt down, looking toward Guwen excitedly. Yi Qingxue, seeing them suddenly kneel, naturally guessed that they had recognized the identity of her senior brother. Guwen walked straight into the mansion, and along the way, every disciple and cultivator who saw him also knelt down in succession. Some recognized him, but many were just alarmed or prompted. Even Yi Qingxue noticed something amiss, seeming to sense that someone was secretly watching Guwen along the way. She thought of one of the sect's branches, the most mysterious one. Dark Hall. "Guwen, what brings you here?" A voice sounded, revealing ancient sect with a smiling face coming up to greet him. He was one of the few elders who had a very good relationship with Guwen. They had known each other for 1,900 years, back when Guan's identity as the supporting Dao Sword Venerable had not yet been revealed. Guan spoke with a smile, "Arrange it, I need to see all the elders." Ancient Sect's heart skipped a beat. Guan had never made such a request before, and his first thought was that something serious had happened. And it was something major. He didn't dare to ask further and immediately went to make arrangements. Yi Qingxue, watching Guan's commanding presence, looked at his back in admiration, not even realizing that her gaze was now the very one she had most despised in the past. Her master had looked at Guan in the same way. One by one, elders appeared out of thin air, and upon showing themselves, they immediately saluted Guan. Seeing that Guan did not pay attention to them, they too became anxious. Guan was known for his gentle demeanor and meticulous courtesy, and was well respected, but if he forewent these courtesies, the elders could feel the terrifying pressure from the supporting Dao Sword Venerable. Many elders even thought about fleeing the place, yet they were afraid of offending Guan. They wondered in their hearts, what exactly had happened? Was it an invasion by external enemies, or did some reckless fool provoke the supporting Dao Sword Venerable? Their eyes inevitably fell on Yi Qingxue. With the supporting Dao Sword Venerable bringing this woman, there had to be a reason. Chapter 488. Incomprehensible Methods. Vice Sect Leader Jihan Tian also appeared, and he personally led Guan and Yi Qingxue to the conference hall. In the end, Guan sat in the seat of honor with Yi Qingxue standing by his side, while the other elders stood as well. Seeing Guan with his eyes closed, they couldn't help but communicate secretly through sound transmission technique. Because everyone was using the sound transmission technique, the conference hall fell silent, and Yi Qingxue was extremely nervous, her body taut with tension. At this moment she also worried that the situation might blow up too big. Could it be that because of her and her disciple, the Supreme Sect would crumble and disperse? She couldn't bear such an outcome. The Qin family was merely interested in her disciple's talent and didn't intend to harm her disciple. If she didn't approach Guan, her disciple would just lose his freedom. But if the Supreme Sect lost Guan, it would affect everyone in the Supreme Sect. Yi Qingxue began to blame herself, thinking she should have explained the situation clearly before coming. She looked at Guan wanting to speak but hesitated. Little did she know what she understood was not the truth. The Qin family not only wanted her disciple, they wanted his life. Time continued to pass. More and more elders arrived, and some changed their expressions when they saw Yi Qingxue, presumably guessing the reason. LV Badian also arrived. He had the best relationship with Guan and thus mustered the courage to ask why Guan had come. "It's nothing much, just want to say a personal farewell to everyone," Guan said with closed eyes, and as soon as these words came out, everyone panicked and began to discourage him. "Sword Venerable, is there something we have failed to do?" "Yes, Sword Venerable, the Supreme Sect can do without anyone but you." "Who has offended you?" "Just say the word and the Supreme Sect will definitely give you an explanation." "Sword Venerable, don't scare us." "Sword Venerable, where are you planning to go?" The elders, no matter from which powerful family they came, even those from the Qin family, were thrown into disarray. To this day, most of the Elder Hall's members were newcomers. They had joined the Supreme Sect because of supporting Dao Sword Venerable. Without supporting Dao Sword Venerable, what was the Supreme Sect? Guan opened his eyes and looked at the faces in the hall. Most were unfamiliar, just like the current state of the Supreme Sect, which made him feel increasingly alienated. It wasn't just that old acquaintances were passing away, the sect's spirit was changing and seemed no different from other sects. The law of the jungle where the strong are revered. Chivalry was not often mentioned by most people. Pursuing the celestial mandate had become everyone's goal. This atmosphere had even spread to the Third Medicine Valley. Although this was the machination of those pursuing the heavenly Tao, the fact that it was so easily shaken still made Guan somewhat weary. With his current divine skills, he could go anywhere and take his Medicine Valley with him. Guan was indeed planning to change locations, go into seclusion to cross the tribulation and reach for a higher realm. The strife in this world was still long, with never-ending tribulations and continual unexpected twists. Being in the spotlight would only bring incessant troubles to those around him. LV Badian fell silent. He was not as panicked as the others, thinking Guan wanted to recover from injuries. If Guan was truly weary, he would not stop him. In his eyes, Guan had no obligation to always guard the Supreme Sect. He had heard about what He Qingsong had said previously in the Third Medicine Valley, and he was aware of the heavenly Tao resisting Guan. The Supreme Sect seemed stable, but who really knew the pressure Guan faced? Guan looked over everyone, making them lower their gaze as the discussions abruptly ceased. Suddenly, Guwen raised his right hand, and something appeared in his palm out of nowhere, covered with a faint silver light and water surrounding it. Upon close inspection, it wasn't just a rock. It turned out to be an island, but in Guwen's palm, it looked like a rock. "What's this?" LV Badian asked with a frown. The others also focused on the island in Guwen's hand, their divine sense probing it, and soon some of them showed a change in expression. The elders from the Qin family looked even more panic-stricken, trembling all over with extreme fear. Yi Qingxue also looked at the small island in surprise. She used her divine sense to probe it and took in the entire island's scenery. She saw her disciple. "Changer?" Yi Qingxue's beautiful eyes widened in disbelief as she called out. She saw her disciple bound to a stone pillar, barely clinging to life, surrounded by others also tied to various stone pillars, their bodies plastered with all sorts of talisman paper. As soon as she spoke, the Qin family elders were so scared they immediately knelt down, each sweating profusely. Guwen had already taken control of the island. Although they couldn't understand his methods, they knew Guwen was targeting them. LV Badian turned his head to look and asked with a frown, "What's going on?" The other elders also frowned, just as clueless about what the Qin family was really up to. But judging from the formation inside the island, it seemed to be a ritual sacrifice of the people on the pillars. Could all these people be disciples of the Supreme Sect? They weren't sure, but one thing was certain. Someone was related to Yi Qingxue, and Yi Qingxue had come following the supporting Dao Sword Venerable. Big trouble was brewing. The many elders glanced at the Qin family elders with a chilling gaze, wishing they could execute them on the spot. The Qin family was strong, but it all depended on who they were compared to. If they opposed the supporting Dao Sword Venerable, the entire Supreme Sect would join forces to eradicate the Qin family. With a thought from Guwen, figures flew out from the island one after the other, all of them imprisoned prodigies who landed on the ground in a disheveled state. Yi Qingxue immediately rushed to one of them, and Guwen followed, casting lifespan detection. Yi Chang, 5th layer nascent soul realm 129/700/9999, huh? A lifespan limit of 9,999 years. Such talented individuals were a rarity these days. Guwen admired silently, then with a squeeze of his right hand, prompts to seize lifespans appeared continuously. This island had existed for a long time, engaged in utterly vile deeds. Before Yi Chang and the others were captured, the Qin family had practiced their evil skill here, the hands of everyone on the island stained with blood. Killing them, Guwen felt no burden whatsoever. Upon seeing Guwen clench his fist, all the elders' hearts pounded furiously. They couldn't afford to look at the tormented talents. Instead, they all fixed their eyes on Guwen, not even daring to breathe heavily. The Qin family elders were ashen-faced, terrified. Under their watchful eyes, Guwen opened his right hand, and sand fell from his palm. From beginning to end, Guwen's face was expressionless, causing everyone's hearts to grow cold, sending chills down their spines. No one dared to speak, including LV Badian. They didn't know what to say, only feeling fear in their hearts. They finally understood the terror of being an enemy to Guwen. They even believed that if Guwen exhales they might die. You can investigate the truth of the matter yourselves and be wise from now on. Guwen stood up and walked towards the gate. Yi Qingxue supporting Yi Chang hurriedly followed him. Everyone watched Guwen leave, and the confused rescued prodigies looked at Guwen, not understanding what had happened. They weren't even aware that they had been saved. Ji Hantian approached a Qin family elder with a dark expression, gritting his teeth and said, "Speak, what exactly has your Qin family done?" The Qin family elder trembled under the murderous gazes directed at him and immediately confessed the evil practice of the Qin family. After hearing the confession, LV Badian couldn't help but sigh. Such incidents had occurred more than once. The supporting Dao Sword Venerable's emergence in the world was to help the Supreme Sect prevent such evil deeds. It had been over 1,000 years, now nearing 2,000, and still, there were those who committed such foolish acts. LV Badian suddenly felt powerless. The Supreme Sect had indeed grown rapidly, but what did it really mean? What was he aiming for by remaining in the position of sect leader? Elsewhere. Guwen stepped out of the elder hall. He paused, turned to look at Yi Qingxue and said, "Take him back to recover. No one will trouble you for what's to come." With that, he walked off towards the streets, ready to stroll around the sect's main city. Yi Qingxue hurriedly bowed towards Guwen's retreating figure. Yi Chang, his face covered in blood, struggled to open his eyes and said weakly, "Master, who is he?" Yi Qingxue fought back her excitement and whispered, "He is your ancestor's senior brother, your teacher's granduncle." Yi Chang's eyes widened. He lifted his head, trying to catch a glimpse of Guan's fading figure but could no longer see him. Guan disappeared into the crowd. Observing the bustling scenes along the way, he began to ponder the future of the supreme sect. This street would experience bustle and solitude, ebb and flow with the world's changes. As of the decision he made today, this street would turn into wilderness many years later. Chapter 489. Celestial Tao Reincarnation, 10 billion years lifespan. When Guan returned to the Third Medicine Valley, it was dusk, and he called an Xian to return with him to his loft. "Master, is there something you needed?" An Xian asked, curious. Guan seldom summoned her without a significant reason. Guan asked with a smile, "If I were to prepare to leave, what would you think?" Upon hearing this, Enzin's expression instantly turned serious. She knew her master was not joking. Over the years she too had felt something was amiss. It was widely proclaimed in the world that all must believe in the heavenly Tao and pursue the celestial mandate. At first she didn't feel much, but when she heard the disciples declaring that the fate of the world was predetermined by heaven, she sensed trouble. She still remembered what He Qingsong had said, that the heavenly Tao did not wish for her master to intervene. Although she wasn't sure if He Qingsong could represent the heavenly Tao, she couldn't help but think more about it. "If master wishes to leave, then we will leave. Where to and when?" An Xian asked, seemingly without any hesitation and even somewhat eagerly. Guan shook his head with a wry smile and asked, "Don't you have people or things you would hate to leave behind?" An Xian replied, "Although I am the major disciple of Medicine Valley and have close relationships with many disciples, I know where everything I have comes from. I only care about master and my senior fellow disciple." She was gentle by nature, considerate in her interactions, but that didn't mean her heart was indecisive. Guan could hear the sincerity in her voice. His lips curled up as he said, "Since that is the case, I entrust you with a task. Select a suitable disciple from the Third Medicine Valley to take over as the Valley Master in the future. Of course, do not reveal my intentions for now." An Xian immediately agreed. Then she began to inquire where Guan planned to go, but Guan did not answer her. For he was also hesitating. The universe was vast, with many worlds. It was worth considering whether to head to outer heaven or stay in the celestial spirit great world. Under the mystical star-studded sky, the celestial Tao golden core emitted endless light, illuminating the entire universe. Boom! A gust of wind rushed toward the young immortal emperor, causing his golden robe to billow intensely. He squinted, looking towards An Hao standing before him. 10 feet away, An Hao stood with his back to him, his body enveloped in golden flames, his long hair fluttering, radiating a soaring aura. This aura is almost catching up to that of celestial and earthly immortals. How has his strength increased so quickly? Something's not right. The young immortal emperor's eyes flickered with suspicion. An Hao slowly turned around, glancing sidelong at the young immortal emperor, his expression indifferent and totally unlike his usual self, causing the young immortal emperor to frown. "What's wrong?" the young immortal emperor asked. And Hao said, "A powerful being is targeting the celestial Tao golden core. They are already waiting for its emergence." "Did the celestial Tao golden core tell you that?" the young immortal emperor asked. And Hao didn't reply but instead fixed his gaze on the young immortal emperor and said, "The calamities of the immortal dynasty are approaching. The fierce battle you hope for is perhaps wishful thinking." "Calamities?" The young immortal emperor's brows furrowed tighter, his doubts about An Hao's state growing. And Hao said solemnly, "Your Majesty, if the immortal dynasty faces the danger of annihilation, would you sacrifice yourself to save it?" Whoosh! The young immortal emperor heard a noise behind him, and as he turned he saw a ring of light emerging on the surface of the celestial Tao golden core, quickly expanding to display the thriving scenes of the immortal dynasty. As he watched, a hand descended from the sky, uprooting the continent where the immortal dynasty was located and moving it to outer heaven. Next, this hand crushed the entire immortal dynasty into dust, leaving nothing behind. The young immortal emperor's face turned grim as the scene within the ring of light vanished, leaving only a vague figure standing inside, seemingly waiting for him. The celestial spirit's archenemy has targeted this realm. Destroying the immortal dynasty is just the beginning, next is the holy court. What will you do? This being surpasses even the free immortal, An Hao said, his tone indifferent as if possessed by some supreme being. The young immortal emperor looked at him again and asked, Who are you really? And Hao's expression didn't change as he answered, I am still in Hao, just that I have been tempered through the celestial Tao reincarnation over the years, making me different from before. Heavenly Tao reincarnation? I kept experiencing the destruction of the celestial spirit great world, where each time all beings were annihilated, the world shattered, and the heavenly Tao golden core was taken by a mysterious and powerful being. I kept changing the situation in the reincarnation, but the outcome was always the same. As long as the world shattered and the light of the heavenly Tao that enveloped the world dispersed, that mysterious being would make a move. And Hao said in a tone laced with inexplicable meaning, filled with sadness and resolution. Young Immortal Emperor was not startled but looked deeply into his eyes and asked, if that's the case, what good does my sacrifice do? And Hao looked toward the heavenly Tao golden core and said, the heavenly Tao golden core will grant you strength that surpasses that of the Zizai immortals, but from then on, you will become a puppet to the heavenly Tao golden core. Your emotions will be erased. You will still be you, but there are many things you will no longer be able to do, and that is only if the transformation is successful. Young Immortal Emperor, with a smile curling the corners of his mouth, responded, that sounds a lot like the celestial sect wandering the human world. He turned to look at the heavenly Tao golden core, and the figure within the halo gradually became clearer. It was another him, as though he were looking into a mirror. Flames sparkled in young Immortal Emperor's eyes, growing more intense. Years flew by, another 200 years had passed. Third Medicine Valley. Ancient Sect stood in front of Guanis' loft, his face filled with complex emotions. An Xan standing beside him said, Elder Gu, go back. If Master returns, I will inform you. Guyu, alongside Ancient Sect, couldn't resist asking, it's been over 150 years since he left, why hasn't he returned? Could he truly be gone? The Qin family has already been punished and even expelled, can't he let go of his grudges? An Xan shook her head and replied, it's unrelated to that. Master left because of something else. You're overthinking it. Ancient Sect stopped Guyu from saying more. Let's go back. Perhaps we are overthinking it. Elder Gu sighed, then turned and left. Guyu could only follow in his footsteps. Under a nearby tree where the blood prison great saint was meditating, he opened his eyes and watched them leave, his face showing a mocking smile. An Xan turned and left without lingering under the loft. At the same time, inside the loft, Guan had not left. He was lying on a chair reading a book. He had merely concealed his own aura and fate, thus misleading others into thinking he wasn't there. Even if someone were to enter now, they wouldn't see him. After finishing the last page, Guan pulled up his attribute panel. Name, Guan, lifespan, 2-143/9-999-605-001, physique, primordial infinite body, cultivation level, Luo Tian Zizai immortal realm perfection, 99 billion years of life. So close to 100 billion. Guan was eagerly anticipating his new life abilities, hoping they wouldn't disappoint. The reason he feigned departure early was to prepare for his breakthrough. The next breakthrough would surely shake heaven and earth, and he also wasn't sure if his journey to the land of reincarnation would alarm the celestial spirit great world, so he chose to hide himself in advance. Now, other than the celestial spirit god, no one should be aware that he was still there. He shifted and began to gaze into the distance. He sensed a formidable power approaching the celestial spirit great world. Taoist Zhang Zizai Immortal. This being wasn't seeking to destroy the celestial spirit great world, but was targeting a corner of it. That direction was the Immortal dynasty. Guan started to look forward to the so-called Heavenly Tao Golden Core and whether it could truly help young Immortal Emperor defeat an enemy greater than Azizai Immortal. Because of Hao, Guan often kept an eye on the Heavenly Tao Golden Core. Located in a special space, Guan was able to perceive it partly because he had secretly left a Tao Destruction Destiny seal on Hao. He could feel the changes in Hao, his celestial Tao destiny far more intense than that of puppets like He Qingsong. Chapter 490. The Great Tao is boundless deep within the universe. Amidst the darkness, a purple rainbow sped along at an inconceivable speed, its target being the celestial spirit great world. Many great cultivators and demons roamed the void, and when they saw the purple rainbow, they were all frightened, hurriedly dodging out of the way, fearful of being struck. What is that? Such a terrifying aura, could it be the existence of the 8th or 9th level of the Immortal Tao? The universe is indeed becoming more dangerous. It's not only the celestial spirit great world, but other great worlds are also continuously facing calamities, and there are even some that have been swallowed by mysterious forces. I heard that too. It said that this power is called the Battle Court. We better find our disciples and avoid the tribulation, survive to the next era, and then we can turn our fortunes around. As cultivators and demons discussed, the purple rainbow drew closer and closer to the celestial spirit great world. Inside the celestial spirit great world, countless beings saw a purple meteor appear from the horizon, descending from the heavens towards the distance. Many mortal spirits even thought it was a lucky star descending, and they began to pray and make wishes. Before long, a thunderous roar reverberated through the world. On a hillside, Long Qing and Qin Xuan, who were practicing their skills, stopped and turned their heads simultaneously, seeing a purple glow on the horizon, desolate yet magnificent. Feeling the strong aura from afar, Qin Xuan frowned and asked, "Senior brother, what's happening?" Long Qing felt a palpitation that he hadn't felt in many years, inexplicably feeling as if a great disaster was about to strike. "I'm not sure, it could be another battle between great powers. We'll get used to it. There are always some areas in the world that are restless, but it won't affect us," Long Qing said, trying to reassure him. Qin Xuan hesitantly asked, "But our master has been gone for many years. Could it be?" Long Qing glared at him, saying irritably, "Sister and the blood prison great saint are still here. How could master leave? You will come back." Qin Xuan fell silent. His understanding of Guan was not deep. Facing Guan, he was always very constrained, so he was also worried that Guan might leave. Guan was the sky for the Third Medicine Valley, and even the Supreme Sect. Without him, the Taitsong continent would surely be caught up in chaos. Qin Xuan wasn't afraid of being involved in the conflict, but he was afraid of losing track of his master. He still wanted to practice the sword Dao under his master. Even though he was known as a genius, faced with his master's sword Dao, he felt an endless urge to learn. He needed time to become stronger. He was not yet ready to stand against the heroes of the world. The two brothers gazed into the distance, each harboring their own thoughts, no longer speaking. Not just them, in various places within the Third Medicine Valley, disciples were all looking in the same direction, worrying about the future of the Taitsong continent. Guan had not left for over a century. His prolonged absence had inevitably led to rumors within the Supreme Sect, many people worrying that the supporting Dao Sword Venerable had abandoned the Supreme Sect. The news even spread overseas, causing many spies from different sects to infiltrate the Taitsong continent and the Supreme Sect. The Supreme Sect seemed still stable, yet it felt as if it was a building about to collapse. Inside the tower, Guan watched the battle, observing the Immortal dynasty resisting that Taoist Zhang Zizai Immortal from outer heaven. In just an instant, the Immortal dynasty's destiny was dispersed by that person, who crashed into the Immortal dynasty's land, shattering the ground and engulfing the mountains and lands with fierce fire, turning the continent of the Immortal dynasty into a hell in a blink. Guan could sense that this person was holding back, seemingly not wishing to destroy the celestial spirit great world itself, just wanting to crush the Immortal dynasty. The Immortal dynasty responded swiftly, quickly forming a great formation, the ancient Immortal Emperor taking the lead to combat the Taoist Zhang Zizai Immortal, with other divine thought true immortals joining the battle. Taoist Zhang Zizai Immortal was quite arrogant, continually provoking the Immortal Realm's immortals' Dao hearts, looking to grant them the greatest opportunity. Yet, Guan knew he was waiting for the Celestial Dao Golden Core. The Celestial Dao Golden Core was hidden in a mysterious space, isolated by Celestial Dao destiny, making it impossible for Taoist Zhang Zizai Immortal to locate it directly. Guan also saw that Yang Immortal Emperor had surpassed the Free Immortal. He was inside the Celestial Dao Golden Core, and surprisingly he did not need to cross the tribulation. His chi blood was merging with the Celestial Dao Golden Core in a bizarre manner. What a spectacle this will be. Guan's lips curved upward. With a thought, an avatar appeared at the table and then vanished from the spot. The impending attack of Taoist Zhang Zizai Immortal would undoubtedly bring a new round of calamities to the celestial spirit great world. Guan saw through his origin. This individual was connected to Battle Court, which meant Battle Court would eventually make a large-scale descent into the celestial spirit great world. He needed to choose his breakthrough site in advance in order to face Battle Court with greater confidence. Currently, the Battle Court's strongest cultivation level in the universe was the profound Yuan Free Immortal realm. Although it was still beyond the reach of heaven encompassing Free Immortal Guan, he wanted to conceal his stronger cultivation level to avoid unexpected incidents. In a single step, Guan's avatar entered the reincarnation vortex above, zooming into the reincarnation area at a rapid pace. The rules of reincarnation were special, invisible and colorless, but when a living being approached, they would be swept away and brought into the land of reincarnation. Guwen had previously explored the land of reincarnation. It was so vast that it was even larger than the universe, so he had not directly determined the breakthrough site. Indeed, the land of reincarnation was extremely mysterious and dark as night. Even as his avatar traversed this land, it felt uneasy, as if something terrifying might emerge from the darkness at any moment and rip him apart. The mystery and vastness of the land of reincarnation made Guwen realize that the great Tao was unimaginably vast, not confined by the universe, and there were many other mysterious places with different rules from the universe. Guwen split his focus, keeping an eye on the great battle in the Immortal Dynasty while monitoring his avatar. About half an hour later, an overwhelming aura burst forth, covering everything in heaven and earth so that all living beings could feel it. Whether human, demon, or sea creatures, all looked toward the direction of the Immortal Dynasty. A gigantic sun appeared in the sky in that direction, spectacular in its brilliance. Its scorching heat reached every corner of the world. This heat did not cause discomfort but instead gave a warm feeling, and even the most anxious hearts inexplicably relaxed. In Guyen's eyes, the figure of Yang Immortal Emperor was reflected. The suddenly appearing massive sun was transformed by him. This sun, emitting dense celestial Tao destiny, quickly healed the injuries of the immortal spirits of Immortal Dynasty and also helped recover their spiritual power. How utterly domineering! Guwen began to look forward to Yang Immortal Emperor's performance. Celestial Tao Golden Core, such a magnificent creation, how dare you waste it? A chilling voice rang out, bursting with killing intent, making all living beings feel fearful. As the voice fell, heaven and earth shook violently, and two Taoist Zhangzizai immortals began a great battle. This meant that all life in heaven and earth would be affected, no matter the distance. Even though both Taoist Zhangzizai immortals did not wish to damage the celestial spirit great world, the power that surpassed the free immortals was more than enough to cause a destructive impact on all things. Sects around the world immediately formed formations, protecting continents, islands, and seas. Sects across the Taitsong continent also sensed trouble and hurriedly formed their own formations. Meanwhile, on top of a high mountain, Zhu Shi stood at the edge of a cliff, facing the wind. Her hair was blown about, her face expressing solemnity, her eyes flickering. Feeling this overwhelming pressure, images she had never seen before began to emerge in her mind. She saw a huge golden core burning with blazing flames. Inside the golden core stood a person, seemingly speaking to her. She strained to hear clearly but could not make out the words. What exactly is it? Zhu Shi frowned, muttering to herself. After leaving the Taitsong continent, she had traveled extensively, encountering many opportunities. As her cultivation level grew stronger, her memories of her previous life began to resurface, and she gradually learned of her past live's identity, though she was still not fully adjusted to it. Chapter 491 Profound Star Immortal Monarch Taoist Zhangzizai Immortals Great War left all living beings within great heaven and earth enveloped in panic. Even though the two Zhangzizai immortals headed to outer heaven to battle, the shockwaves from their initial clash continued to wreak havoc upon the world. Great waves surged across the vast ocean, while the boundless plains were swept by raging winds, and atop the high mountains and snow-capped ridges, blizzards whirled. The common folk were fleeing, the celestial vault was roaring, and thunder echoed in waves. Inside the house, Guwen predicted that the Taitsong continent would also be affected. However, it would not be a catastrophic strike, so he did not plan to intervene, deeming it a good opportunity for the inhabitants of the continent to be vigilant. To let them understand that the so-called heavenly Tao would not protect them, and if they wished to survive these turbulent years, they would have to rely on themselves. Guwen closed his eyes, no longer observing the scenes of turmoil throughout the lands. As for the battle between Yang Immortal Emperor and that Zhangzizai Immortal, Guwen had already foreseen the outcome. The battle court's desire to obtain the celestial Tao Golden Core was not so simple to achieve. Elsewhere, within the imperial palace of the Taitsong dynasty, Li Xiandao, dressed in his dragon robe, sat upon the dragon throne, his gaze fixed on the sky outside the palace, filled with flames. His sword-like eyebrows were deeply furrowed, and his expression looked troubled. He had already reached the nirvana realm in his cultivation level, though his publicly known cultivation level was at the void-crossing realm. No one was aware of his true depth. Your Majesty, Even existences from outer heaven seek to vie for the celestial mandate. Do you truly remain unmoved? Asked a Taoist clad in a gray robe, standing in the hall, holding a horsetail whisk, and wearing a slight smile, seemingly confident he had seen through Li Zuando's heart. Li Zuando's gaze fell upon him and said, "Can you truly bestow upon me the celestial mandate?" The gray-robed Taoist shook his head. "In this world, the only key that can grant your majesty the celestial mandate is the theory of heaven. However, the Zhu Luo sword monarch is far too powerful. No one can wrest the celestial mandate from his hands. Nevertheless, I can guide your majesty onto the heavenly Tao, allowing the Taizong imperial dynasty to become an existence blessed by the heavenly Tao." Li Xiandao narrowed his eyes and asked, "Oh? How will you assist me and what must I sacrifice in return?" The gray-robed Taoist smiled and said, "I can help your majesty establish destiny, harmonize the fate of the imperial dynasty, and all you need to do is make the people believe in the heavenly Tao." Believe in the heavenly Tao. How so? Your majesty only needs to have the people erect monuments and statues, and pay homage to the profound star immortal monarch. Profound star immortal monarch? Li Xiandao raised an eyebrow, his expression turning playful as he asked with interest, "Is this immortal monarch one of the celestial Tao immortal gods?" The gray-robed Taoist smiled and said, "Exactly, by believing in him, they will be under his divine protection and may even receive his power." Li Xiandao sneered, "Is that so? To convince me of his existence and to wager the fate of an entire nation, don't you think you should offer something more compelling?" The gray-robed Taoist did not panic. He stared at Li Xiandao and asked, "Your Majesty, do you wish for an immortal path ultimate treasure?" Upon hearing this, Li Zuando's expression shifted slightly. An immortal path ultimate treasure was naturally very appealing to him. His son Liya had relied on a pseudo-immortal Tao ultimate treasure to massively conquer enemies, and he too had envied it. The gray-robed Taoist raised his right hand, and a treasure sword intertwined with a golden dragon flew out from his palm, rapidly enlarging. This is the profound star emperor sword, even mightier than an immortal path ultimate treasure. With this sword, your majesty would possess the power to prevail across the world. However, you must venerate the profound star immortal monarch, for the emperor's sword will sense your heart. After saying this, the gray-robed Taoist lifted his hand, sending the profound star emperor sword flying towards Li Xiandao. Snap! Li Xiandao grasped the profound star emperor sword, and in that instant, his complexion changed as he felt an incomparable power coursing through him. This power made him feel capable of accomplishing many things. He looked at the Taoist in the gray robe and asked, "There are so many imperial dynasties in the world, why choose me?" The gray-robed Taoist laughed and said, "It's very simple because of the supporting Tao sword venerable. He doesn't belong to the heavenly Tao nor to the celestial spirit great world. He leads those around him away from the heavenly Tao, so I want to bring the Taizong dynasty back to the heavenly Tao. Your Majesty needn't worry, the heavenly Tao won't make you confront the supporting Tao sword venerable, nor does it want to oppose him as long as the supporting Tao sword venerable doesn't interfere with the affairs of the heavenly Tao." Hearing him mention the supporting Tao sword venerable, Li Xiandao couldn't help but have Guan's image appear before his eyes, and his gaze grew complicated. Knowing that Guan was the supporting Tao sword venerable, his emotions remained unsettled for a long time. He originally thought he was the best at concealing his identity, but Guan had opened his eyes to a whole new level. He had heard that Guan had left the Third Medicine Valley more than 100 years ago, and he couldn't help but wonder, could it be related to the heavenly Tao? Even the powerful supporting Tao sword venerable didn't want to oppose the heavenly Tao. Li Xiandao fell into deep thought. He didn't grow more longing for the heavenly Tao but instead was filled with wariness towards it. Guan had managed to hide his identity for so many years, which showed that they were cut from the same cloth, and with Guan's higher cultivation level, he would see more things. Guan's distance from the heavenly Tao must surely have its reasons. The profound star emperor sword in his hand might just be too hot to handle. The gray-robed Taoist stood in the hall, quietly observing him, waiting for him to make a decision. "Your Majesty, don't let me down." The Taoist thought emotionlessly, confident that Li Xiandao would not refuse him. If he were to refuse, then he would have to act on behalf of profound star immortal monarch. A year passed and spring yielded to summer. Guan stood at the window peering out over the continents of the world. Last year's cosmic calamity ended with the young immortal emperor's victory, thereby earning him immense fame as the second mighty individual to successfully ward off a powerful enemy from outer heaven, his name resonating throughout the world. That calamity had brought a wave of destruction to the Tai Tsang continent, but in the end, Li Xiandao managed to quell it with a single sword stroke, saving all living beings on the continent. After that, the Tai Tsang continent fell into an odd, tranquil state, and no great changes came upon the world. The young immortal emperor, having reached the level of Taoist Zhang Zizai Immortal, didn't directly march on the holy court. Instead, he chose to go into seclusion again. Without my intervention, this continent can still remain peaceful. This shows that I can indeed let go. Guan said with a smile, his voice light. Although Li Xiandao was somewhat compelled, the fact was that he truly protected the continent. Guan believed that Li Xiandao would have the last laugh. Let the so-called profound star immortal monarch see that the power of mortals should not be underestimated, especially the ambition of mortals. Seeing that the weather was fine, Guan turned around to his desk and reached for the spirit flower on it. He deliberately risked his lifespan, ready to embrace the new abilities of 100 billion years. You successfully acquired 68 years of lifespan from the Longevity Spirit Flower, Tier 6. Your lifespan has broken through 100 billion years for the first time, unlocking the Lifespan Dojo feature. Lifespan Dojo. You can consume lifespan to establish a dojo which has some effects of the lifespan barrier to prevent deductions and prying, but the dojo cannot gather nature's spiritual energy from outside its bounds, and it has defensive power comparable to your current realm. The Lifespan Dojo has no area limits, but the range will affect lifespan consumption. A special reminder that the dojo cannot move. Every 10,000 years you may choose to establish a new dojo. Lifespan Dojo? Guan's eyes lit up. This was good. The lifespan barrier had been a huge help, but he couldn't always keep it up due to the enormous lifespan consumption. Luckily now there was the Lifespan Dojo. Chapter 492. Breakthrough to the perfection of the innate golden immortal realm. Guan did not immediately establish the Lifespan Dojo, but prepared to make a breakthrough first. This time he did not plan to enhance his physique or cultivation technique, as he felt that his improvement in all areas was already significant. In these turbulent times, he could completely focus on pursuing an increase in cultivation level. Once the new era arrived and everything returned to peace, he would use the long years to improve in all aspects. Moreover, over the years he had contemplated the Tao rules, continuously making progress, which might compensate for some gaps in lifespan evolution. Since his lifespan had reached 10 billion years, it was time to set off. Guan disappeared into thin air from inside the house, stepping directly into the reincarnation vortex and heading to the land of reincarnation. Because his avatar had explored many times, Guan walked decisively without glancing left or right. After passing through a dark area, he traversed a distance far beyond what a mortal spirit could imagine. Even a free immortal would need time and might not be able to cross the dense reincarnation rules. Looking around, it was still darkness, without a glimmer of daylight, but the fog symbolizing the yin and yang reincarnation appeared in front, indicating that Guan had arrived at the land of reincarnation. The land of reincarnation had no land. Looking down was an abyss, and looking up there was no ceiling. There were no directions here, no vitality. Anyone here would feel only endless solitude. Even though Guan's avatar had been here many times, he had never seen any other living beings. Fortunately, there was a special type of spiritual energy that could help him break through. With spiritual energy, powerful beings would surely be nurtured. It's just that Guan had not yet encountered any. After a long time, Guan landed on a gray lotus flower which was 100 zhang tall. Looking around, these gray lotus flowers of varying sizes occupied the dark space, emanating a faint glow. These lotus flowers were not living things. Rather, they were condensed from the reincarnation rules, and their coverage was extremely wide, even comparable to the silent extinction domain beyond the celestial spirit great world. Because the lotus sea was vast and boundless and had an even denser reincarnation spiritual chi, Guan chose this place for his breakthrough. The moment he landed, he activated the lifespan barrier. Although he didn't feel any mighty presence, he remained vigilant, acting as if there was a powerful being lurking in the shadows. He couldn't expose himself. Guan sat cross-legged, pulling up his attribute panel and looking at his entire 10 billion years of lifespan. His mood became pleasant. The last time the breakthrough took 20 million years per crossing the tribulation. This time, even if it reached 50 million years per crossing the tribulation, he could break through 200 times. He hoped it wouldn't be that exaggerated. Guan adjusted his mentality and immediately invested 10 billion years of lifespan into his cultivation level. He was even more generous than before. You have practiced chi absorption cultivation for 50 million years. You forcefully strike at the golden immortal Tao fruit realm with the great achievement of the great Tao great freedom as you wish Bible and begin crossing the tribulation. You did not endure the reincarnation top Tao ultimate tribulation, crossing the tribulation failed. You have practiced chi absorption cultivation for 100 million years. You forcefully strike at the golden immortal Tao fruit realm with the great Tao great freedom as you wish Bible and begin crossing the tribulation. You did not endure the reincarnation top Tao ultimate tribulation, crossing the tribulation failed. It really is 50 million years per crossing the tribulation. Although Guan had mentally prepared himself, seeing such a great consumption made his heart sink. One prompt after another fell, the 10 billion years of lifespan rapidly depleted. All failed. Guan continued to invest lifespan. Since he had not achieved success in his breakthrough, the lifespan numbers consumed by the lifespan barrier grew very slowly. Outside the barrier, the void remained silent. The gray lotus flowers were so mysterious and eerie, like countless souls floating there. After a while, Guan saw that he had only 30 billion years of lifespan left and could not help but take a deep breath. Something wasn't quite right. Could it be that he was destined to fail this time? Guan didn't believe in bad luck. He planned to leave himself 5 billion years of lifespan. If he still couldn't break through by then, he would have to give up. You have practiced chi absorption cultivation for 50 million years. You forcefully strike at the golden immortal Tao fruit realm with the great achievement of the great Tao great freedom as you wish Bible and begin crossing the tribulation. You endured the reincarnation top Tao ultimate tribulation, crossing the tribulation succeeded, your Tao fruit transformed into the golden immortal Tao fruit, your cultivation level broke through to the early stage of the innate golden immortal realm. You have practiced chi absorption cultivation for 100 million years, your cultivation level grows. You have practiced chi absorption cultivation for 500 million years, your cultivation level breaks through to the middle stage of the innate golden immortal realm. You have practiced chi absorption cultivation for 1 billion years, your cultivation level breaks through to the late stage of the innate golden immortal realm. Innate golden immortal realm. Guan's face revealed joy, as he had finally broken through successfully. Continue to ascend. The lifespan barrier began to vibrate, and terrifying, vast reincarnation spiritual chi surged towards Guan. In an instant, the lotus sea outside began to sway. Guan used 8 billion years of lifespan, and only then his cultivation level rose from the late stage of the innate golden immortal realm to perfection. He still had 12 billion years of lifespan left, enough for the lifespan barrier to consume. Billowing reincarnation spiritual chi entered Guan's body, and he also felt the reincarnation rules drilling into his being. As more and more reincarnation rules accumulated inside him, numerous images of reincarnation appeared before his eyes, all of which pertained to karmic connections he had with others. He saw the reincarnations of figures like Yang Jian, Xiaochuan, Lu Jujia, and Yi Yan. He also saw the past lives of Yi Lan and Ji Xiaoyu. Too many images bombarded his vision, yet his expression remained unchanged, and it did not affect his Tao heart. He even began to comprehend the path of reincarnation through this experience. Countless gray lotuses swayed, as if the entire void was about to collapse, possessing a kind of chaotic beauty. Far away, the reincarnation mist churned more violently, as if unimaginable terrifying fierce beasts were about to devour everything. Guan suddenly sensed something and glanced towards the darkness. Indeed, there is a powerful presence. Is it a living spirit or a lost soul? Or perhaps, does this place harbor a special existence beyond life and death? Guan wondered to himself, sensing an aura not inferior to that of the profound Yuan-free immortal. And to think this was only the beginning of his breakthrough. Even more powerful entities might emerge later on. He dared not completely immerse himself in the breakthrough, keeping part of his mind outside the barrier, ready to move at a moment's notice. Under the mysterious starry sky, before the celestial Tao golden core, the young immortal emperor was sitting in meditation, his back to the celestial Tao golden core, with a mini sun floating behind him, burning with golden flames that made him appear akin to a sun god. The sun is the most perfect creation of the heavenly Tao. Any place bathed by the sun is considered a blessed land favored by the heavenly Tao, but there are also strong and weak suns, and Hao stood not far away, looking at the celestial Tao golden core and musing. The young immortal emperor did not open his eyes, but he asked, "How powerful is the sun the heavenly Tao has blessed you with?" And Hao replied, "I don't need the sun from the heavenly Tao, I want to create my own sun." The corners of the young immortal emperor's mouth curled up, and he no longer continued the conversation. After a while, The young immortal emperor suddenly felt something, his eyes snapped open suddenly, and even Jianghu turned his head to look into the distance. The starry sky showed ripples as if a lake's surface was disturbed, making the entire cosmos seem so illusory, like the moon reflected in the water, ready to shatter at any moment. What is this anomaly? Jianghu asked with a frown. Although he had experienced the celestial Tao reincarnation, he had never seen such a phenomenon in this space before. This space consisted of the power of the heavenly Tao, independent of the celestial spirit great world. The young immortal emperor's brows also furrowed. Ever since he first entered this secret realm, 5 million years had passed, and he had never seen such an anomaly. In his eyes, this secret realm was even the safest place in the world. Now seeing the distortion in the starry sky, he felt an inexplicable panic. Could it be that an even more terrifying existence was about to arrive? He began to calculate with his fingers, but even he, having reached the level of the Taoist Zhangzizai Immortal, could not discern anything. Not only in this secret realm, but distortions also began to appear in the celestial vault in various places throughout the celestial spirit great world. The silent extinction domain in outer heaven was even more turbulent with spirit mist, oppressively dense. More and more locations began to experience spatial anomalies, thereby affecting the entire universe. Deep within the silent extinction domain, seated on a throne, Yi Tianji opened his eyes. He looked up and saw visible spatial distortions in the dark void. Is this disturbance in the path of reincarnation? Yi Tianji murmured to himself and looked in another direction. That way lay the world gate. He saw beneath the world gate a towering figure appearing, a powerful form gleaming with white light, as if representing supreme authority. The celestial spirit god. Chapter 493, Tao Fruit Blossoms Reincarnation Chaos. He has even been alerted. Yi Tianji withdrew his gaze, his eyes flickering, suddenly feeling that the waters of celestial spirit great world were very deep. Whether it was to search for the celestial Tao golden core or to pursue the descendants of the Long clan, both had become difficult. Could it be that the descendants of the Long clan escaping to this realm was not by chance? Was the mysterious supporting Tao sword venerable merely a sign? What dark forces were hidden behind all this? Yi Tianji looked again at the twisted void, feeling that a mysterious and powerful being was manipulating everything behind the scenes. If he could feel this, not to mention all living beings within the various realms of existence. In a forest within celestial spirit great world, Zhu Shi stood on a tree branch, looking at the twisted celestial vault, her brow furrowed. Reincarnation in chaos, could it be the hidden danger from that entrance? The Yuanshu ancestor of the Immortal dynasty opened the reincarnation vortex, allowing the celestial spirit great world direct access to reincarnation, and many cultivators used the reincarnation vortex for reincarnation trials, or to flee to other realms. In Zhu Zai's view, this was an act that disrupted the order of reincarnation. Indeed, chaotic anomalies had now appeared. Zhu Shi suddenly thought about escaping from celestial spirit great world, but her cultivation level simply could not break free from the heavenly Taoist limitations. It seems I can only go to that place to fight for a chance of survival. Zhu Shi thought this way and then leapt down from the tree branch, walking towards the depths of the forest. On the other side of the world, on a throne inlaid with treasure swords, Zhu Luo Sword Monarch also gazed at the celestial vault. Around him was a large hall without a ceiling, with great swords standing along the edges, their tips pointing skyward, their edges sharp and exposed. Looking at the ceaselessly twisting celestial vault, Zhu Luo Sword Monarch also sensed that the reincarnation rules were in flux, which made his gaze fall on the reincarnation vortex. What exactly is happening there? Zhu Luo Sword Monarch felt puzzled. He then lowered his head, looking at the 8 existing treatises on heavenly Tao floating before him. He was just one treatise away from obtaining the true immortal inheritance. Originally he was not in a hurry and wanted to enjoy the process, but now with anomalies appearing in reincarnation, he worried that his cultivation level would not withstand future situations, especially since he had heard that the supporting Tao Sword Venerable had left the Supreme Sect over 100 years ago. If supporting Tao Sword Venerable had indeed fled celestial spirit great world, he could not afford to be careless. Zhu Luo Sword Monarch pondered for a moment and immediately stood up. With a wave of his right hand, he gathered the 8 treatises on heavenly Tao into his sleeve, then vanished from the spot. While all living beings were anxious about the anomalies in the celestial vault, this was just the beginning. When the nature's spiritual energy began to descend, the beings were about to face true panic. In the land of reincarnation, the Grey Lotus Sea, Guan was seated on a lotus, surrounded by grey mist, with golden light spilling out from within. His eyes closed, he was in the midst of the creation of innate golden immortal. The top of his Tao fruit had cracked open, and a bud was growing out, while the golden light around him was the light of a golden immortal, and the grey mist was the innate chi condensed from spiritual energy and the Tao rules. Upon closer observation, one could see his entire person slowly shrinking. It was an indescribable state of profound mystery. His cultivation level was soaring, striking towards a higher realm. Above his head emerged a chi sea, continuously expanding and annihilating, that was the image of Luotian. Breaking through heaven encompassing free immortal, returning to the innate state, and sculpting a golden immortal body. Although Guan had not completely broken through yet, he had already acquired many memories about the innate golden immortal. Upon reaching the innate golden immortal realm, the Tao fruit transformed, and both body and soul were reshaped. From then on, the cosmic space could no longer restrain him, and moving through the cycles of yin and yang reincarnation became effortless. As an immortal, golden immortals were stronger than free immortals, and after the Tao fruit of the golden immortal blossomed, it could even create a new world, establishing its own world rules, birthing all living beings and continuously undergoing reincarnation, thereby allowing the Tao fruit itself to grow continuously. So much fortune and profound mystery were produced by the golden immortal Tao fruit, aiding Guan in better understanding the 3,000 great Tao. During this process, Guan truly felt the vastness and unfathomableness of the great Tao. The great Tao was omnipresent. One could feel its presence upon stepping into the immortal Tao realm, existing quietly without posing any threat to cultivators, but the higher one's realm, the more one could perceive the gap with the great Tao. The eternal and indestructible great Tao was even more stable than the heavens, earth, and the universe. The so-called rules of heaven and earth were also evolved from the great Tao according to the heavens and earth, but the gap between the rules and the great Tao was vast, like the difference between the flame rules and the path of fire. Though they seemed identical, they were fundamentally different. When Guan was immersed in creation, a pair of dark red eyes appeared in the darkness, swirling with reincarnation spirit mist, followed by an immensely huge dragon head. This dragon head was pitch black, with blood-red horns and floating whiskers that dispersed the spirit mist, covering 1,000,000 grey lotuses just by poking its head out. The 100-meter lotus beneath Guan appeared minuscule in front of this dragon head. He sensed the appearance of the dragon head, opened his eyes, and his eyes shot out golden light, which did not pass beyond the lifespan barrier. The dragon head swept over the top of Guan's head, followed by an immensely shocking dragon body. This dragon body was actually a murky yellow river, thousands of miles wide and with an immeasurable length. Looking at the yellow river, Guan could not help but think of the netherworld from the Wuxia mythology. Heaven encompassing free immortal. Guan thought silently. He sensed that this dragon's cultivation level was comparable to that of the heaven-encompassing free immortal, yet its aura was different. When he sent out lifespan detection, he received no response. This indicated that this dragon was not a living creature and might even lack its own will, but merely possessed a powerful aura. Eventually, the yellow river black dragon disappeared at the other end of the Lotus Sea. Guan did not ponder deeply and continued to experience the mysteries of the innate golden immortal. As he absorbed more and more reincarnation spiritual chi and reincarnation rules, the anomalies in the land of reincarnation intensified. Gradually, Guan condensed into a golden core, the innate chi around him dispersed, leaving only the light of the golden immortal. The golden core he transformed into was small and trembled slightly. Boom! Suddenly, a huge booming sound appeared above as rolling spirit mist surged past, flowing unstoppably. Within that spirit mist were countless departed souls, both human and demon. They moved so fast that without careful observation, one could not see the departed souls inside. Countless departed souls converged into a vast sea, sweeping away as if to split the entire land of reincarnation. A golden light drove away the darkness, and a golden Buddha appeared, sitting on a golden lotus, advancing through the sea of departed souls. He was so majestic, not inferior in momentum to the previous yellow river black dragon, and even possessed an additional aura of sanctity. This golden Buddha did not linger but followed the sea of souls into the darkness and disappeared. Afterward, continuously powerful existences swept across the Lotus Sea. Fortunately, no one attacked the Lotus Sea. Time swiftly passed. The golden core transformed by Guan trembled more violently until cracks appeared on its top, and a new sprout emerged, quickly growing and causing the cracks on the golden core to expand. Chapter 494. Tao Fruit World Golden Core sprouted. The cracks at its top continued to expand, and the newly born bud grew rapidly, as the reincarnation spiritual chi around it began to pour into the fissures of the golden core, forming a vortex of airflow. Once the bud had grown to a certain stage, it began to bloom. At the same time, the golden core beneath it suddenly shattered, and Guan's body appeared, naked and pristine, resembling the most perfect creation in the world. His form began to grow larger as he transformed from his original physique. The Tao fruit within him bloomed as well, evolving into a golden immortal Tao fruit, signifying a successful breakthrough. From this point, he had become an early-stage being of the innate golden immortal realm. His mana transformed into innate magical power, vast like the boundless primordial waters at the dawn of chaos. The phenomenon caused by the lifespan barrier reached another stage, affecting all the heavens and myriad realms, with the spiritual energy of many worlds sinking and the Tao rules of outer heaven twisting. The major forces of various worlds began to act, investigating the cause or preparing to flee. Yes. This was the scene playing out in many parts of the great heaven and earth. Even the supreme sect in the celestial spirit great world was thrown into disarray, with LV Badian even leading people into the third Medicine Valley, seeking to find Guan's whereabouts. They hoped an Exan could contact Guan, and if not, at least reveal to them the truth behind the heavenly phenomenon to put them at ease. Regrettably, an Exan knew nothing, and after much maneuvering, LV Badian and the others could only leave with heavy hearts. Long Qing came to Anzin's side, looking together in the direction of LV Badian and the others leaving, and asked, "Senior sister, is Master really going to leave Supreme Sect?" This time Guan's departure had been so long that even the disciples within the third Medicine Valley began to worry he would leave the Supreme Sect. An Exan looked toward Long Qing and asked with a smile, "If Master were to leave, how would you choose?" "Of course I would follow. What other choice could there be?" Long Qing answered without hesitation. An Exan followed up, "If you follow Master, you will never be able to enter the mortal world for the rest of your life. You can only cultivate in a place isolated from the world. Would you be willing to do that?" Long Qing fell silent. An Exan said, "You can cultivate diligently now because you wish to achieve a higher cultivation level, but if you attain it, could you remain as focused? Don't rush your answer. I'm talking about a lifetime, countless years." Long Qing opened his mouth, but no words came out. In one's life, isn't the purpose of cultivating to enjoy a better life? To him, life meant integrating with society or with the immortal cultivation realm. At this moment, other disciples in the valley were discussing their futures. If their master truly left, what path should they take? It was a matter they had to consider. The celestial vault above was still distorting, occasionally showing unusual rainbows, and the earth's spiritual chi continued to sink, causing the ground to tremble slightly. The tense atmosphere between heaven and earth was still intensifying. It was unknown how much time had passed. Naked, Guan slowly opened his eyes and instinctively pulled up the consumption page of the lifespan barrier, only to find that he had expended 500 million years of lifespan. His cultivation level had reached the middle stage of the innate golden immortal realm. He still had nearly 700 million years of lifespan left. The next breakthrough, wouldn't the consumption of the lifespan barrier amount to several billion years of lifespan? Guan felt a sense of awe in his heart, but he did not feel any regret, as he had already reached a very high realm. How many beings spend their entire lives unable to reach the Zizai immortal realm, let alone cross the Tao fruit realm? Guan continued to wait for his cultivation level to increase. He had gained a certain understanding of innate golden immortal. As the Tao fruit blossomed, the great divine power nurtured in it, the longevity true words, underwent a transformation, and according to his plan, it engendered even more mysteries. As for the world cultivated by the Tao fruit of the golden immortal, it must be studied further. And whether his own world planted with medicinal herbs could seize lifespan was unknown to him. The world nurtured by the Tao fruit was intrinsically a part of him. There was no seizing lifespan from oneself for oneself. Moreover, this world could not directly bring external objects into it and required a lengthy evolution, not an instant formation. The world of a golden immortal could be illusory or real. If it could not increase his lifespan, he would not allow the golden immortal world to become reality but keep it for cultivation of the great Tao. Guan looked up and saw, in the depths of the darkness, another colossal entity, its aura on par with a perfected profound yuan-free immortal. Indeed, the land of reincarnation was more terrifying than the universe. During his breakthrough, he had already encountered many auras of profound yuan-free immortals, and even those of heaven-encompassing free immortals. He hoped not to encounter an innate golden immortal. Having just broken through to this great realm, Guan did not wish to immediately encounter a being of the same realm. He found he still could not perform lifespan detection on the formidable beings that appeared. It seemed the land of reincarnation had no living creatures. No, not just non-living. Wait. Guan suddenly realized something and felt a chill run down his spine. Could it be that the land of reincarnation he entered was the Tao fruit world of some powerful being? Hence, everything he saw was close to a real existence in an illusory world? He had previously detected beings without lifespan, at least managing to ascertain their realm, but now he could not even detect the realm of those passing by. Guan's wariness of the land of reincarnation surged, but he was within a lifespan barrier and not afraid. If there really was some kind of will behind this illusory world that he had alarmed, it would have acted already, not leaving him to speculate until now. The universe has celestial spirit gods, and the land of reincarnation harbors even more mysterious entities. All things considered, the celestial spirit great world is safer. Guan thought to himself, deciding that he would still establish his lifespan dojo in the celestial spirit great world, just not in the supreme sect. He planned to hide again in the secular world, waiting for an era to pass. Given the current cosmic situation, a battle court invasion was inevitable, which might even alarm the celestial spirit gods. Guan didn't want to expose himself or be seen as a thorn in the side of these powerful beings. Moreover, with his non-interference, the evolution of the cosmic situation wouldn't progress so swiftly, giving him more time to grow stronger. Perfect, they've long wanted to venture out into the world. Guan's lips curved into a smile, and his mood brightened at the thought of the 3 celestial demon children. He closed his eyes and continued to wait for his cultivation level to increase. About an hour later, his cultivation level had reached the perfection of the innate golden immortal realm, with just over 100 million years of lifespan remaining. He rose to his feet, and his robes materialized on his body, followed by a belt, immortal king crown and other items. After dressing himself, while the reincarnation phenomenon was still present, he stepped forward and directly entered the reincarnation vortex. With another step, he landed within the mountains and rivers of the celestial spirit great world. Standing on a cliff, he faced the wind, then raised his arms, basking in the earth's spiritual chi breeze. The celestial vault was still distorting, and the wind existed because of the sinking spiritual energy. Yet he, the one who caused all these phenomena, had finished his breakthrough as if it was all unrelated to him. Having become an innate golden immortal, the celestial spirit great world seemed small to him. He could pay attention to all things simultaneously, and if he willed it, the rate of all things evolution before his eyes could dramatically slow down. He exercised his limbs for a while, then turned to descend the mountain. The reason for coming to these mountains was their remoteness from the immortal dynasty and holy court, lying on the edge of the celestial spirit great world and comparatively peaceful relative to other areas. There was even a town not more than 10 miles away, and within a radius of 1,000,000 miles, the level of immortal cultivation was low, without a single being of the immortal Tao realm or demon. Most importantly, a person from his past had reincarnated here. After entering the forest, the phenomena began to subside. The chirping of insects in the woods gradually resumed, and sunlight filtered through the leaves to the ground, forming patches of light. I've never seen anyone like you. Yeah, big brother, we really want to cultivate toward immortality. Seeing this group of lively, excited children, Guan, who was already in a good mood, grew even more delighted. It was hard to see such vivacious kids in the Third Medicine Valley. Guan cleared his throat with a cough and said with a hint of mystery, I do know a bit about immortal cultivation. But if I teach you, can you promise not to tell anyone else, including your families? At his words, the children, without a second thought, immediately agreed. Come here tomorrow and I will impart to you the art of immortal cultivation, Guan said with a smile, his gaze then drifting to the celestial vault. The battle court had begun to stir again. They were targeting young immortal emperor, with the provocation of worldly unusual phenomena also playing a part. The battle court feared an unprecedented catastrophic reincarnation calamity was upon them, one that might overturn all heavens and myriad realms, so they wished to seize the celestial Tao golden core before that and also to slay Long Qing. They were afraid Long Qing might escape into the reincarnation, having previously evaded them that way. Long Qing's ancestors had even utilized reincarnation to flee all the way from outside the universe to this cosmos, using the celestial spirit god to foil their plans. This time, how would Yang Immortal Emperor withstand the battle court? The celestial Tao golden core could not grant him greater power. Hearing Guan's words, Yi Xiaoyang and his friends suddenly got anxious, feeling as if Guan was deceiving them. Despite Guan's persuasion, they could only suppress their anxieties and head back home. Yi Xiaoyang took a few steps, then couldn't help but look back, seeing Guan standing by the stream with a smile, watching him and his friends leave. He felt inexplicably dazed. For some reason he felt a kinship with Guan, an attachment so strong that it filled him with reluctance to leave right now. He feared that once he left, he might never see Guan again. Yi Xiaoyang opened his mouth wanting to say something. Guan looked at him and smiled, "Hurry back home. Tomorrow I'm still waiting for you guys to tell me the story of Journey to the West." At these words, Yi Xiaoyang's heart settled down. He chuckled and quickly turned to catch up with his companions' retreating figures. As Guan watched them leave, he thought to himself, the name Pan and Sure has spread widely. Not just Journey to the West, but the investiture of the gods and romance of the three kingdoms have also made their way to this land. Guan saw the driving force behind this. Someone wanted to open up the aspiration for immortal cultivation among the mortal spirits of this land. Guan didn't care too much. A cultivator of the profound heart realm couldn't influence his decision to open the lifespan dojo. He didn't return to the supreme sect, but instead, he walked in another direction. He was going to choose a suitable place to open the lifespan dojo. When the time came, he would move the world excluding Cave Heaven and the 8 scenic Cave Heaven there, hiding them underground. As for the 3rd Medicine Valley, Profound Valley, End of the World Valley, Mountain God Temple, he wouldn't touch them. He would just occasionally go to harvest medicinal herbs. He wanted the people of the Supreme Sect to gradually get used to life without him so that when he truly left, the Supreme Sect wouldn't collapse. Once the dojo was established, he could let the celestial demon child and the other 2 girls move around in the woods, no longer confined to the world excluding Cave Heaven. In the depths of the void, countless figures were flying, surrounding a colossal palace with 9 suns floating above, radiating dazzling heavenly might. Yi Tianji, the master of the battle court, sat on his throne, with the image of the celestial spirit great world reflected in his eyes. A man with wings stood on the palace, also looking towards the distance. He turned his head to speak to Yi Tianji. That Yang Immortal Emperor is merely at the Taoist Zhang Zizai Immortal's cultivation level. There's no need for you to take action. Just send another person to join forces with me. The Taoist Zhang Zizai Immortal who had invaded the Immortal dynasty before was him, defeated by the Yang Immortal Emperor, which left him feeling humiliated and eager for revenge. Yi Tianji, expressionless, said, "No need. Make this operation quick. Kill those who should be killed, take what should be taken, then return." The reincarnation phenomenon of the past 2 days had unsettled him, and recalling the legends of the celestial spirit great world from before, he felt he could delay no longer. The winged man held his tongue upon hearing this. His gaze was suddenly drawn to the 9 suns above Yi Tianji's head. He saw mysterious figures within the suns, flickering in and out of visibility as if they were in another dimension. That is, the winged man's pupils suddenly constricted, his heart churning with shock. He hadn't expected Yi Tianji to summon them. Could there be some terrifying existence hidden within the celestial spirit great world that he didn't know about? Was it the supporting Tao sword venerable? The winged man looked away, his gaze returning to the direction of the celestial spirit great world. The mighty army of the battle court moved forward through the void, as if nothing could stop them. Meanwhile, in the celestial spirit great world above, numerous figures suddenly appeared on the celestial Tao light layer. Great cultivators from every corner noticed the arrival of the battle court. An indescribable sense of oppression was enveloping the celestial spirit great world. The higher one's realm, the faster they felt it. This reminded many of the time when the profound desolate demon god had attacked. Elsewhere. Chapter 496. The world grows dark, disperse? What does that mean? An Exian asked curiously. She had watched Long Qing grow up and considered him her own child, naturally wishing him a lifetime of peace. The so-called great cause and effect sounded like a deep-seated vendetta, so how could she not worry? Guan gave her a look and said, Why so many questions? When your cultivation level is higher, you will naturally understand everything. An XN pouted and said, "Isn't that why I'm waiting for you to take me away? Once we find a quiet place, I'll seclude myself for 1,000 years, 10,000 years. When I emerge, I will surely be an enlightened master." In her perception, 10,000 years was an incredibly long time. She believed that if she cultivated for 10,000 years in the human world, she would definitely be considered a powerful being. Guan didn't discourage her but instead said, "Let Long Qing prepare." An XN nodded, raised her hand in a salute and then turned to leave. Although she was very close to Guan and often bickered with him, she never forgot the proper courtesies when needed. An XN left the house, closed the door behind her and then walked down the stairs. A female disciple passing by asked curiously, "Big sister, the master isn't here, what are you doing going up there?" An XN replied, "Even though master isn't here, I still have to manage things. We can't let the master return to find the house full of dust." The female disciple felt that made sense. She stepped forward, linked arms with an XN and began to sigh, wondering when the master would return. An XN casually comforted her, and the two walked off into the distance. The third medicine valley was still bustling, the disciples busy with their own tasks, unaware that a disaster was about to strike. As time passed, more and more beings felt the terrifying pressure from the battle court. When the disciples of the third medicine valley felt the pressure from the battle court, chaos had already erupted across the world. Most living beings did not know where the pressure was coming from and felt only fear. They fled in panic, finding that no matter where they ran, the pressure only increased, amplifying their fear. Guan saw that the young immortal emperor and the saint minister hastened to outer heaven. They were preparing to negotiate with the battle court. The oppression from the battle court this time was even stronger than the profound desolate demon god before, wearing down even the confident young immortal emperor and the ambitious saint minister. Especially the young immortal emperor, he felt that no matter how much he gave, he would always face an insurmountable enemy. For the saint minister, he could no longer care about his ambitions, focusing only on how to lead the holy court through the difficult times ahead. Xingtian had already abandoned them. What was the holy court's next move? That night all beings found it hard to sleep. The next morning, Guan arrived early at the forest, waiting for Yi Xiaoyang and his 4 companions. He sat on a rock by a small stream, looking up at outer heaven, where the young immortal emperor and the saint minister faced the profound Yuan-free immortal in a grand hall. The negotiation appeared to be going poorly. Guan was not interested in the profound Yuan-free immortal seated above. He was curious about the 9 suns. The 9 suns hid 9 profound Yuan-free immortals, the suns acting like some sort of gateway, the spaces connected originating from other universes. From the aura of the great Tao emanating from within, Guan could tell they did not come from this universe, and each originated from a different universe. What puzzled Guan more was why the celestial spirit god wasn't taking action. The celestial spirit god was meditating in front of the world gate, previously absent, clearly drawn by the disturbance caused by Guan's breakthrough. Could it be that the battle court had reached some sort of agreement with the celestial spirit god? Guan could determine that there was no direct connection between the celestial spirit god and the battle court because the celestial spirit god had a dense aura of celestial Tao destiny, which was not the kind of destiny that belonged to the battle court. Meanwhile, on the massive battle court, the young immortal emperor and the saint minister stood side by side, looking up at the formidable Yi Tianji like they were gazing at a deity, the light from the 9 suns illuminating their faces, highlighting their grim expressions. The grand hall was surrounded by floating figures, all sneering at the young immortal emperor and the saint minister, as if they were looking down on reptiles. The saint minister took a deep breath and said, "We indeed do not know who the descendant of the Long clan is, and there are countless incarnations of heavenly demons among the heaven and earth. As for the celestial Tao golden core," he glanced at the young immortal emperor, then turned to Yi Tianji and said, "If the celestial Tao golden core were to leave the celestial spirit great world, the celestial spirit great world would shatter. How is that different from killing us directly?" Yi Tianji was expressionless and said, "The difference is you can live. At this point, do you still want to save others?" The saint minister furrowed his brow. If he really only cared about his own life, he could have escaped from the celestial spirit great world long ago. At this moment he could only place his hopes on the supporting Tao sword venerable. He was just trying his best to stall for time, waiting for the supporting Tao sword venerable to make his move. The young immortal emperor spoke up, "Aren't you afraid of the heavenly Taoist backlash?" Yi Tianji snorted, "Heavenly Taoist backlash? It seems you don't know what heavenly Tao really is. Indeed, a mere mortal trying to reach for the celestial Tao immortal position has deceived you all in the great heaven and earth. It's truly sad, but it's also the fault of that being. Upon hearing this, the young immortal emperor wanted to ask more, but Yi Tianji continued, "Enough, no more stalling. It seems the supporting Tao sword venerable you are hoping for has already left." While the saint minister was delaying, Yi Tianji was also waiting. Before coming here, he knew about the supporting Tao sword venerable's feat in annihilating a split body of the silent destruction god emperor. He was sure that the supporting Tao sword venerable must be the profound Yuan free immortal. For this, he even specially invited 9 fellows of the same realm to help. Although he didn't say it out loud, he was actually very wary of the supporting Tao sword venerable, so he didn't make a move immediately, wanting to see what the supporting Tao sword venerable had to say. However, the night had passed, and the supporting Tao sword venerable had made no move. Yi Tianji guessed that the supporting Tao sword venerable might have been scared away by the reincarnation phenomenon. It was normal, given that the phenomenon capable of causing such fear was unimaginable and certainly not something the profound Yuan-free immortal could match. As for whether it was the supporting Tao sword venerable, he never even considered that possibility. He learned from the 9 fellows above him that other universes also had such phenomena, with an unimaginably vast scope. The faces of the young immortal emperor and the saint minister changed drastically. They hadn't expected Yi Tianji to know what they were waiting for. Yi Tianji raised his right hand, and seeing this, the young immortal emperor immediately began cultivating energy. The powerful aura of the Taoist Zhang Zizai immortal suddenly burst forth, and the saint minister of the Zizai immortal realm, standing next to the young immortal emperor, lacking the strength, was immediately pressured to retreat in a flash. The creatures surrounding the grand hall in the battle court all turned and faced the young immortal emperor, their auras likewise bursting forth. Even the young immortal emperor, a Taoist Zhang Zizai immortal, changed color at their intensity. He had long felt that the surrounding creatures were powerful, but he hadn't expected that many would have a cultivation level higher than his own. How were they supposed to fight now? The young immortal emperor looked towards Yi Tianji, his face intensely uneasy, his eyes filled with a chilling look as he tried hard not to show any signs of fear. Yi Tianji's smile was wild and contemptuous as he directed the palm of his right hand towards the celestial spirit great world. In an instant, the entire celestial spirit great world shifted abruptly from daytime into nighttime, with neither the bright moon nor the stars visible. Walking through the forest, Yi Xiaoyang and his 4 companions screamed in fright, hurriedly hugging each other, no longer daring to move forward, with some even scared to tears. The cultivators and demons standing on the celestial Tao light layer were utterly horrified. Under their watchful eyes, an indescribable giant hand descended from above the universe, stretching towards the celestial spirit great world. The vast and boundless celestial spirit great world seemed like a small pebble in front of this giant hand, about the size of a finger. From far atop the grand hall, both the young immortal emperor and the saint minister stared in shock. The descendant of the Long clan, it's time to awaken. Yi Tianji's voice resounded throughout the celestial spirit great world. Under the darkness, his voice seemed like that of a demon god from the abyss, instilling endless terror into all living beings. In the 3rd Medicine Valley, Long Qing was looking up at the night sky when he suddenly sensed something and abruptly clutched his head as a flood of memories burst forth from the depths of his mind, assaulting his spirit. He had never felt such intense pain in his head before, as if it were going to explode. In pain he then knelt on the ground. As the world had already darkened, everyone else was watching the night sky, and no one noticed his abnormality. How could this be? Long Qing gritted his teeth and murmured to himself, struggling as he saw himself fighting and slaughtering across a realm filled with the blood of all living beings, his world tinged with red. Chapter 497. Is this the battle court you take pride in? Guan heard Yi Tianji's words but did not take action. He watched Yi Tianji help Long Qing awaken his past life memories. It's time for this young man to face his own destiny. If Guan had helped him recover his memories, Long Qing might still have entertained some hope. Now that Yi Tianji was helping him awaken the memories, Long Qing realized just how heavy the causality he bore was. Guan couldn't take care of Long Qing forever. Long Qing was already over 1,000 years old. It was time to face his destiny. The fate of the Long clan, though tragic, was also wrought with many evil deeds. Their downfall was lamentable, yet seemed only natural. Of course, there were good people in the Long clan, but because of Long Zhan, the clan was prone to producing violent individuals. Just like Long Qing, Guan could see that in his past life, Long Qing had also committed evils. Guan defended Long Qing from the battle court as a favor for Long Zhan. Moreover, since the battle court was no good either, destroying it would mean Guan was thoroughly erasing the causality left by Long Zhan. The battle court was created by Long Zhan, and Long Qing was his only descendant. Guan felt it necessary to reverse this bad karma. Besides, if he did not intervene, the celestial spirit great world would probably not withstand the battle court's assault, which was not something he wanted to see. Guan looked up at the night sky, his divine sense locking onto Yi Tianji, as he examined the deeper causality of the battle court. The battle court that had descended upon the celestial spirit great world was merely a branch, just as the silent destruction god emperor before it. The real battle court was being blocked outside the world gate. If Guan were to destroy this branch of the battle court, then it would mean a fight to the death with the real battle court. To this he was not afraid. What he dreaded was only the group of immortal gods, not the battle court. The causes that arise from me shall be eradicated by me. Guan looked at the night sky, thinking so, his face as calm as ever. In the void, atop a grand palace, the young immortal emperor and the saint minister trembled as they looked at the terrifying giant hand above the celestial spirit great world. They had no will to fight in the face of such a hand, only a sense of despair. Even though the young immortal emperor had glimpsed such a vision in the celestial Tao golden core, when he saw it for real, he was chilled to the bone. How vast was the celestial spirit great world, yet it seemed insignificant before this colossal hand. The young immortal emperor turned his head, looking at Yi Tianji, and with gritted teeth asked, "Who exactly are you all and from where have you come? If you want us dead, can you at least let us die in the know?" Yi Tianji's right hand was half raised. Upon closer examination, his hand's shape was identical to the giant hand above the celestial spirit great world, intensifying the pressure on the young immortal emperor. Facing the young immortal emperor's inquiry, Yi Tianji sneered, "Then I shall satisfy your curiosity. We come from the battle court. My name is Yi Tianji and I possess the power to discern heavenly secrets. The destinies of both of you lay clear before my eyes. You are destined to die without even the hope of reincarnation." The battle court. The saint minister seemed to remember something, his eyes revealing a horrified expression. The young immortal emperor, however, fell silent, not that he had chosen to surrender without a fight, but because a domineering power suppressed him, leaving him immobilized. All he could do now was wait for his death. He didn't even dare to use the power of the celestial Tao golden core, fearing Yi Tianji would detect its existence. Finally found it, it really was under the care of the supporting Tao sword venerable. Yi Tianji suddenly said, redirecting the thoughts of the young immortal emperor and the saint minister. The supporting Tao sword venerable became the only hope in their minds. They clung to this lifeline like drowning individuals, their eyes lighting up. Yi Tianji then lifted his left hand, reaching toward the palm of his right. But at that moment, a hand suddenly landed on his shoulder, causing his heart to jolt violently, and his pupils to dilate. In his view, the young immortal emperor suddenly grew larger. Not just the young immortal emperor but everything around became enlarged. No, it was he who had shrunk. His gaze drifted sideways unconsciously, and from the corner of his eye, he saw a figure shrouded in a dark purple demonic chi. It was this figure's hand pressing down on his shoulder, shrinking him to the size of a mortal. The battle court beings around the grand palace turned their gaze to him, figures appearing out of thin air before Yi Tianji, surrounding Guan who had performed the celestial dark purple micro Saint Tao body. The celestial dark purple micro Saint Tao body was a transformation of the demon shadow divine skill, possessing an even greater mystery and creation. Guan had chosen to appear in this form, wishing to intervene under the identity of the supporting Tao sword venerable. He was unconcerned about being surrounded by 9 profound yuan-free immortals. Even if he stood still, those 9 profound yuan-free immortals wouldn't be able to breach the defense of the celestial dark purple micro Saint Tao body. Guan's eyes settled on Yi Tianji. Yi Tianji, late stage of the profound yuan-free immortal realm 1-209-827-298/30, 000000000/50, 0000000, a 12 billion year existence. A lifespan of 30 billion years. Not too bad, worth taking action for. Guan's gaze flickered towards the 9 venerable profound yuan self-free immortals around him, only to discover that he could not conduct lifespan detection on them. That indicated these 9 were not their true forms. Their auras seemed just like that of living spirits. No wonder those 9 suns connected to other universes. They were merely some special power transmission channels. For their true bodies to come here, they probably needed to pass through a world gate. Seeing Yi Tianji shrink, Yang Immortal Emperor was momentarily stunned and then saw Guan's figure. Supporting Dao Sword Venerable. Yang Immortal Emperor became excited, ecstatic with joy. The distant Saint Minister followed his gaze, equally surprised. His senior had indeed taken action. Yi Tianji glanced at Guan with a taut heart that gradually calmed and coldly said, "Supporting Dao Sword Venerable, you truly have taken action. What exactly is your relationship with the Long clan?" The 9 venerable profound Yuan self-free immortals all around emitted black gas, their true faces obscured, as mysterious as Guan. They didn't speak, but their mana had already formed a barrier to prevent Guan from escaping. Guan could even feel their invisible power attempting to probe the surface of his celestial dark purple micro-Saint Dao body, but they simply could not achieve it. "I have said do not involve all living beings. No matter who you are, no matter where you come from," Guan's voice sounded, hoarse and ice-cold, with utmost killing intent that brought Yi Tianji's recently stabilized emotions of terror surging back. Yi Tianji felt the same as Yang Immortal Emperor. Unable to move. Mana nearly solidified inside. How could this be? Could it be that he has surpassed the profound Yuan self-free immortal realm? Yi Tianji suddenly sensed danger. He had estimated Guan to the highest degree, yet Guan was even more powerful than he had anticipated. What brought profound Yuan self-free immortal to this shattered Great Thousand World? Yi Tianji couldn't understand, and at the same time he felt Guan had no relation to the Long clan. The Long clan did not possess such a powerful being. If they did, how could they end up in such a plight? In an instant he thought of many possibilities, even considering Guan as an enemy of the battle court. Fellow Taoist, do you truly wish to oppose the battle court? With such cultivation level, hidden in the shattered Great Thousand World, for what reason? The descendants of the Long clan aren't worth your concealment here. Could it be that you came for the celestial Dao Golden Core? Laughable, for the sake of all living beings? If all living beings aren't here, why the pretense? The surrounding 9 venerable profound Yuan self-free immortals spoke in succession, their tones full of hostility. In their view, Guan did not come to protect all living beings but purely aimed to interfere with the actions of the battle court. Guan slowly raised his head, looking down upon them. Boom! A golden light burst forth from within him, in an instant scattering the 9 venerable profound Yuan self-free immortals. Dao protecting divine essence. And he had unleashed it with the full force of the perfected profound Yuan self-free immortal realm, enough to disperse these not true form beings. The black gas exploded, drifting in front of Yi Tianji, whose pupils suddenly shrank, his face revealing disbelief. The battle court powerhouses around the Grand Hall were also scared, retreating en masse, distancing themselves from the Grand Hall, including the man with double wings who had previously battled with Yang Immortal Emperor, not daring to get close. Guan looked down, gazing at Yi Tianji, and said, "Is this what you're proud of, your battle court?" Yi Tianji, enveloped by fear that penetrated his Dao heart, opened his mouth to speak when a terrifying karmic force came from all around, instantly annihilating him. Physical form annihilated, soul and spirit scattered, even his karma wiped clean. The entire void fell silent at once. Yang Immortal Emperor, looking up at Guan standing high, was dumbstruck, his body trembling non-stop. The Saint Minister was equally shaken. When Yi Tianji's oppressive force suddenly vanished, he collapsed to the ground, his gaze fixed upon Guan, as if a mortal spirit looked up to a god. Chapter 498. Sword Against Sword, the time-transcending struggle of Sword Dao. You have successfully seized 2,809,837,622 years of lifespan from Yi Tianji, profound Yuan-free immortal, late stage. Looking at the prompt before him, Guan's mood improved and he looked up. The warriors from the battle court maintained their distance, staring incredulously at the grand temple. Yi Tianji had vanished directly under Guan's hand, making it feel surreal for them. In their minds, Yi Tianji was so powerful, how could he have died so easily? It wasn't until the giant hand above the celestial spirit great world suddenly dissipated that the warriors of the battle court snapped back to reality. Our Lord has fallen. How is that possible? Who is he exactly? And those divine envoys too? Bad news? Run. It can't be, absolutely impossible. The battle court exploded into chaos with many warriors promptly fleeing. Gu An's right foot shifted slightly, and in an instant several warriors from the battle court burst apart, turning into mist of blood that spread across the void. Since he was taking action, how could he not earn some more lifespan? However, he wouldn't kill all these creatures from the battle court. Doing so would seem like a vendetta. He wanted to continue maintaining the image of someone acting on behalf of all beings of the celestial spirit great world. Randomly selecting a few creatures from the battle court to eliminate was an unfortunate fate that befell them. One prompt after another appeared before Guan, making his mood even more delightful. Protecting all living beings while profiting himself, how could he not be pleased? Young Immortal Emperor and Saint Minister still stood in place. Despondent as the warriors of their battle court were so easily defeated in front of supporting Dao Sword Venerable, they felt both excitement and despair. They thought about their own ambitions and previous schemes, and suddenly felt how ridiculous their past selves were. At the same time, they admired supporting Dao Sword Venerable even more. Possessing such strength yet still interacting gently with them demonstrated a powerful attitude of kindness towards the weaker. Soon the void fell into silence again. Guan felt many powerful divine senses sweep across but quickly withdraw. This battle eventually did alarm some beings of great power in the depths of the universe, yet no one dared provoke Guan. They even regretted their curiosity, fearing being targeted by Guan. Without interacting with Young Immortal Emperor and the other, Guan soared up, collecting 9 suns into the palm of his hand, and then headed towards the depths of the universe. The creatures of the celestial spirit great world returned to daylight, and as the oppressive terror enveloping the world vanished, they began to communicate, discussing what exactly had happened. Even without clear understanding of the events, they felt like they had narrowly escaped a disaster. Long Qing was still kneeling on the ground, holding his head with both hands, gasping heavily in extreme agony. Eventually people noticed his condition and gathered around. Even an XN was drawn over. Watching supporting Dao Sword Venerable disappear into the depths of the universe, Saint Minister approached Young Immortal Emperor, frowning. Has he left? Young Immortal Emperor glanced at him asking, why do you say that? Supreme Sect is widely spreading that supporting Dao Sword Venerable is leaving them. It's been over 100 years since he last returned. This time, Saint Minister hesitated. He had spies within Supreme Sect and thoroughly knew their every affair. On hearing this, Young Immortal Emperor frowned. Standing in Guan's place, he too felt that Guan might grow weary. From his understanding, Guan was indeed a great cultivator who lived in seclusion and coveted nothing. Just the thought of such a great power leaving the celestial spirit great world made him feel uneasy inevitably. Could the reincarnation phenomenon from a few days ago portend an even more terrible calamity? Both Young Immortal Emperor and Saint Minister fell into silence while the grand temple of the battle court completely submerged into darkness, losing all light. In the darkness, Saint Minister mournfully said, regardless of whether he leaves or not, his deeds today must be known to all. That so-called heavenly Tao has never helped us, only he has shouldered everything. Even though Young Immortal Emperor, endowed with the celestial Tao golden core power, harbored no fondness for the so-called heavenly Tao, he replied, I think so too. Even if he does not return, even if we eventually face the end, at least while we are alive, we should be grateful to him. In the dark void, Guan stepped forward, toying with 9 golden pearls in his hand. These were the previous 9 suns, encapsulated with an abundance of power of the great Tao. He was washing away the causality within them. His journey deep into the universe was not to deliberately mislead the 2 Young Immortal Emperor, but for other reasons. He halted his stride and said, You've been watching for a long time, isn't it time to show yourself? As his words fell, a silver-blue sword chi appeared through the thick heavenly Tao mist ahead, swiftly transforming into a human figure. This was a man dressed in a blue Taoist robe with hair white as frost, a crown atop his head resembling a sword scabbard, his back against the darkness, emitting an ancient and vicissitudinous aura. His gaze was exceedingly sharp, standing there like an eternal divine sword, immortal through the ages. Sword God, early stage of heaven encompassing free immortal realm 0/0/0. Age, current lifespan and maximum lifespan all 0. Either it's a flesh and blood avatar or not a living being, similar in nature to divine exotic ghost king, bereft of lifespan and freedom, bound to some formidable power in exchange for eternal life. Guan stared at the sword god, feeling somewhat sentimental. This sword god was precisely Yang Xian's disciple Yang Pingan. Compared to the Yang Pingan of reincarnation memories, this sword god was more vicissitudinous, radiating a twilight aura, yet his sword intent in his eyes was stronger than what Guan remembered of him. In a sense, Yang Pingan had surpassed Yang Xian, who died only as a profound yuan-free immortal. Yang Xian, a 300,000-year-old profound yuan-free immortal, thinking back, his talent was terrifying to the extreme, even without relying on evolved lifespan. Not to mention celestial spirit god, the sword god Yang Pingan was the first heaven-encompassing free immortal Guan had encountered. Guan had earlier sensed Yang Pingan's sword chi, albeit fleetingly. Re-encountering his former disciple in a past life, Guan's feelings were complex. The sword god raised his right hand, using his finger as a sword chi spilling from the tip. He stared at Guan and said, "Your sword Dao is strong, the opponent I've been seeking." Guan, maintaining his celestial dark purple micro Saint Dao body, the sword god unable to see his expression, confusedly asked, "Opponent? I traverse the great thousand world, seeking strong sword Dao practitioners, all to achieve the strongest sword Dao, and you are qualified to be my opponent." The sword god's tone was devoid of emotion, but as his words concluded, a vast sword intent enveloped the void. Guan distinctly felt the celestial spirit god beneath the world gate open its eyes, staring at them. The previous commotion at the battle court failed to attract the celestial spirit god, but the sword god's sword intent did stir Immortal, enough to prove the sword god's might. Such domineering sword intent. Guan raised his right hand, and the celestial star sword granted by Li Ya appeared in his grasp. This sword, regarded as a divine weapon in the mortal world, was less sturdy here than a meteor, yet as Guan's sword chi covered the blade, this sword from the mortal world became the sharpest sword in the universe. The sword god's expression subtly changed, and for some reason, he felt a sense of familiarity emanating from Guan. He lowered his right hand, sword chi directed downward as if holding a sword. The void dimmed, the great Dao mist surged, their confrontation causing fluctuations in the space. "Let me see how strong you've become after enduring such long eras." That was what Guan thought. Yang Xian's only wish before death was to spar with his disciple to elevate his sword Dao. Unfortunately, the celestial spirit god hadn't given him the chance. "You remind me of someone from the past, I will not hold back." The sword god spoke, his sword intent suddenly erupting. The surrounding great Dao mist was instantly obliterated, absolute darkness threatening to engulf them, yet unable to swallow their sword light. Sword against sword, this was a confrontation of sword Dao across the ages. As his thoughts concluded, he distinctly felt the space fluctuating. At the same time, a vast amount of memories flooded into his mind. He could control everything in the dojo as easily as he could his own hands. Moreover, he needed to store lifespans in the dojo to fend off powerful enemies. The maximum defensive strength of the dojo equaled his cultivation level, and with each assault it encountered, a corresponding amount of lifespan would be deducted. Guan hesitated for a moment before storing 10 billion years of lifespan in the dojo. In the celestial spirit great world, there would be no one capable of attacking his dojo. The reason he stored 10 billion years of lifespan was just in case. Chapter 500. The Person Who Should Not Exist, Celestial Court. After establishing the dojo, Guan immediately teleported the world-excluding cave heaven into place, setting it underground. The dojo was a spherical space buried in the soil reaching up to the sky. Guan deliberately placed most of the space beneath the ground so the underground area was larger than that above. After moving the world-excluding cave heaven, he didn't proceed to relocate the 8 scenic cave heavens but instead called out the 3 celestial demon-child sisters. The 3 sisters passed through the ground, and as soon as they emerged, they were captivated by the surrounding mountainous scenery. Their eyes widened as they looked around. Standing at the edge of the cliff overlooking them, Guan said, "From now on, the land within 1,000 miles is my dojo. You will all live with me here in the dojo from this day forward." Upon hearing this, the 3 sisters were overjoyed as they could finally live with Guan every day. "In a few days others will come. You won't be alone. If you wish to go out for a walk, I won't stop you, just don't go too far." Guan's next words piqued their curiosity even more. For over 2,000 years they hadn't met any other beings, but now they eagerly anticipated meeting new people. The three sisters immediately flew to Guan's side, chirping away with endless questions. Guan answered patiently, his face brimming with smiles. Seeing them so happy made him feel content as well. 15 billion years of lifespan had not been spent in vain. In the following days, Guan moved the 8 scenic cave heavens and mountain of 10,000 swords from the 3rd Medicine Valley, taking an XN blood prison great saint and white spirit rat with him. Afterward, he went back to the profound valley alone, summoning Jianghu and Xingtian to inform them of his departure and prepare to disperse the disciples of the profound valley. As soon as the teacher and disciple heard this, they immediately knelt down and begged Guan to take them with him. Guan feigned hesitation before asking if they were willing to give up their freedom. Both agreed. Guan deliberately waited a few days to allow the two to dismiss the disciples. After all the disciples had left, Guan then teleported the entire profound valley away. Supporting Dao Sword Venerable had departed. This event eventually spread within the Supreme Sect, causing a significant stir. The 3rd Medicine Valley also experienced a brief tumult, with Long Qing taking over as Valley Master to prevent the disciples from feeling disheartened. The Supreme Sect's higher-ups began to ingratiate themselves with Long Qing, believing that he would become a go-between with Gu and supporting Dao Sword Venerable was sure to return. Meanwhile, the Holy Court and Immortal Dynasty announced the truth about the calamity from a few days prior to all the world's people. The words Battle Court spread rapidly, and supporting Dao Sword Venerable's merits were widely publicized. In this era where the heavenly Dao was the ultimate truth, the name supporting Dao Sword Venerable made beings feel it was even stronger and more trustworthy than the heavenly Dao for the first time. One evening, Shenzhen stood on the cliff, gazing at the still bustling 3rd Medicine Valley with her eyebrows furrowed and eyes filled with grievances. Beneath her veil, she bit her lip, silent. "What are you thinking about?" A familiar voice came from behind, startling Shenzhen as she swiftly turned around. Upon seeing Guan, her eyes sparkled with surprise. How are you here?" Shenzhen began to express her joy, but she held back, asking with a scoffing tone instead. Guan smiled inquisitively, "I feel my dojo lacks a scribe. Without her writing the dojo would be quite dull. Would you like to come?" Shenzhen's eyes immediately crinkled in laughter. She put her hands on her hips and asked, "You still have a dojo? Aren't you leaving this great heaven and earth?" "Yes, I am leaving far, far away. Would you like to come with me? If you're unwilling, I won't insist." Guan was amused by her posture. He could hear her heart speaking. The girl felt greatly wronged internally. She even muttered some things that gave him goosebumps. "You came to invite me personally, so I have to go." Shenzhen raised her chin in pride. "Do you need to say goodbye to your family?" "Forget it, I've been away for 2,000 years. Our bond has long since been severed. They haven't written to me in 1,000 years." Shenzhen said nonchalantly. Hearing this, Guan didn't ask further and simply waved his sleeve, taking her away. A breeze blew past, leaving no trace of their footsteps. Shenzhen only felt darkness before her eyes, and when she opened them again she was still standing on a mountain, but the scenery in front had changed abruptly. She just happened to witness an Xingtian and Blood Prison great saints sparring figures, battling fiercely in the sky, casting various spells with ease, a truly spectacular sight. The wind stirred up by their combat blew her veil, causing her eyes to widen involuntarily. "Elder Shen, you came too?" A voice of surprise came through, only to see an XN appear out of thin air beside Shenzhen. Shenzhen turned her head to look at an XN and was secretly astonished. Such quick speed. Suddenly she found an XN gave her an unfathomable feeling. She subconsciously looked back at Guan, relieved to see that he was still there. "It's not an illusion realm. An XN take care of her." Guan dropped these words and then turned and left, preparing to make a trip to the North Sea mountain ridge. Shenzhen just wanted to speak when Guan disappeared on the spot. An XN covered her mouth and laughed. "Stop staring, your eyes will fall out. In the future you'll see him day and night until you grow tired of it." Shenzhen turned her head to look at her, unable to refrain from asking, "What place is this exactly?" The setting sun was desolate and beautiful, with strong winds rising. An XN turned and looked toward the distant continuous mountains, her gaze becoming evasive. "This is Master's dojo, he calls it Wuxia." Under the starry sky, the mountains undulated, the hills were covered with white bones, devoid of flowers, grass, or trees. A sword chi suddenly appeared on the hillside, followed by the figure of the sword god, who sat cross-legged, surrounded by sword shadows. His face was deathly pale, with even golden cracks appearing, as if it were about to split open at any moment. "You failed?" An old voice sounded, echoing through the mountains, lingering for a long time. The sword god remained silent, his eyes tightly shut, clearly enduring immense pain. Eternal, infinite, divine sword? Such a domineering sword intent. However, this sword Tao still doesn't compare to yours. It's only that the man's strength is greater than yours. This difference in sword Tao is insurmountable. The old voice sounded again, filled with emotion. Not long after his words fell, an elder clad in a white robe with white hair appeared behind the sword god. He was barefoot, emanating a faint white light as if he were an immortal ready to ascend at any moment. He raised his right hand, extending 2 fingers, touching the back of the sword god's neck. The sword god's clothes began to flutter violently, as sword chi surged from the starry sky, like a tornado pouring into the sword god's body. The white-haired elder uttered in surprise, seemingly sensing something. The sword god opened his eyes, asking, "What? Even you can't drive it away?" The white-haired elder spoke. "Though I cannot see its form, I can confirm, this is Lu Qixian's Tao Destruction Destiny Seal. That person must have a connection with Lu Qiuxian." The sword god frowned, his eyes full of confusion. "Lu Qiuxian, like you, is attached to the river of the great Tao. However, he is even older than you. Who knows how many destinies are intertwined in his long life? It's normal that you can't calculate it." The white-haired elder spoke with a sense of loss, but then a smile appeared on his face, asking, "Encountering such a sword Tao master is a good thing for you. You've won too many times, it's about time you lost. At least this time your opponent didn't finish you. From their sword intent, it would not be difficult to completely destroy you." The sword god took a deep breath and said, "I know. I don't hold a grudge against him, it's just that he makes me feel like a person, like someone who shouldn't exist." The white-haired elder couldn't help but shake his head, speaking, "Your master died a long time ago, why be so obsessed with him still?" The world's situation was unpredictable, and despite his strong talent, he also felt a sense of urgency. If he were to die on the path of cultivation, in 1,000, 10,000 years, no one in the world would remember him. Young Immortal Emperor slowly said, "I want to contend for the theory of heaven." After hearing this, and Hao fell into silence. The mysterious space fell silent along with them, stretching their shadows long. Seasons changed from spring to autumn, and 5 years swiftly passed. The dojo was vast, but few lived there, and each day was quiet, which helped calm Guan's heart. Every day, teaching Yi Xiaoyang and the other 4, planting flowers and picking herbs, writing books, practicing calligraphy, Guan didn't find it boring at all. Instead, he felt fulfilled. 5 years passed, and Yi Xiaoyang and the 4 others had all reached adulthood and successfully reached the foundation establishment realm. In the scorching summer, within the forest, beside a little stream, Guan looked at the grown-up 5 and felt that time indeed flew by. "Master, I want to change my name and be called Yi Qingshan from now on," Yi Xiaoyang suddenly said, and the other 4 spoke as well. "I want to change too, my name will be Lin Xuan. My name will be Qing Meng. I want to change my surname too, call me Gu Changxing." "You shameless, well then I also want the surname Gu Qingdao." Listening to their words, Guan smiled helplessly and didn't stop them. As the 5 changed their names, their fates too changed accordingly. Guan saw their futures. Guan cleared his throat and said, "You have all established your foundations. In a few years, you will surpass your teacher, and I do not wish to be surpassed. Don't come here anymore, go and seek a broader path towards immortality." Hearing this, Yi Qingshan and the others fell silent. They did not argue. In fact, they had wanted to leave for the last 2 years because they had come into contact with cultivators from the immortal cultivation realm and knew how vast it was, making their hearts yearn for it. "Master Wei," Qingmeng couldn't help but speak. Before she could finish, Guan raised his hand and said, "No need for filial gestures. I came here to isolate myself from the world to cultivate in peace. You have disturbed me for so many years, isn't it time to let me go?" Yi Qingshan immediately knelt down and kowtowed to Guan, the other 4 quickly following suit. Looking at Yi Qingshan, Guan thought of Lu Jiujia. Lu Jiujia's figure merged with Yi Xiaoyang's, transforming into a new person. Guan was not sad, he smiled and accepted their kowtows. Yi Qingshan stood up and said, "Once a teacher, forever a father. When we ascend to immortality and achieve the Tao, we will definitely come back to repay you." The others promised as well, and Guan waved them off with feigned impatience. The five bowed and took their leave. Zhen Qin looked up and a smile appeared on her face involuntarily. "Master," Zhen Qin said weakly. Guan looked at her and sighed softly. Zhen Qin had reached the last year of her maximum lifespan. Today's battle had thoroughly drained her vitality. Jiang Qiong was pleased to see Guan, but she didn't speak, choosing to give the time to the master and disciple. Zhen Qin was too weak to speak and soon closed her eyes, her hand naturally falling. This made Jiang Qiong frown. Guan looked toward Jiang Qiong and said, "The ghost mother of ephemera is dead, and the Gathering Flower sect must be personally managed by you." Jiang Qiong nodded and replied, "I know, I will go back soon." She stepped forward, sizing up Guan and said, "Everyone says you've left the celestial spirit great world, but I didn't think you were still here. I said to myself, how could you leave without telling me?" Facing this woman who had greatly helped him in his early years, Guan said with a smile, "If you ever run into trouble in the future, just call for me in your heart." He could hear Jiang Qiong's heart's voice and knew she was not one to leave the secular world, so he did not invite her to the dojo. Jiang Qiong stared at him and asked, "Can I summon you if I miss you?" Guan rolled his eyes at her and replied, "I am very busy." Jiang Qiong huffed coldly and said, "Take her away quickly, don't let her die." She couldn't see the end of Zhen Qin's lifespan, but she could feel her life force rapidly draining, a sure sign of ill. Guan nodded slightly, then disappeared from the spot with Zhen Qin. Jiang Qiong didn't leave immediately but walked toward the corpse of the ghost mother of ephemera. After working together for over 1,000 years, she didn't want the ghost mother's body to be left in the wilderness. Zhen Qin had a very long dream where she returned to her youth, a time when she, Su Han, and Yi Yan lived carefree in Profound Valley. Back then they all aspired to reach the Foundation Establishment realm. When Zhen Qin awoke, she opened her eyes to the blue sky. She sat up instinctively and then saw Guan sitting at a stone table not far away, with an ice coffin next to her. Seeing Guan, her heart settled down instantly. She stood up immediately, ready to go and pay her respects. But as soon as she stood up, she saw the scene inside the ice coffin and froze completely. She couldn't help but blink, but no matter how many times she blinked, the scene inside remained unchanged. "How can this be?" Zhen Qin became agitated, her body shaking slightly. Inside the ice coffin lay Su Han's body intact. She looked back at Guan, who was sipping tea, not looking at her. In that moment, Zhen Qin's heart was filled with emotion and shame, and 1,000 words were stuck in her throat, unable to be spoken. Chapter 503. A lifespan of 256 billion years. Guan and Zhen Qin sat opposite each other and talked for a long time. After seeing Su Han's corpse, the burden and obsession in Zhen Qin's heart completely dissipated, and she returned to her usual lively and clever self. The mentor and disciple talked about the past, endlessly, finding it impossible to cover all the old times. However, everything has an end, including life. When dusk fell, Zhen Qin looked at Guan and said earnestly, "Master, thank you for your care in this life. As a disciple, I've been incapable and have never repaid you. If there is an afterlife and I am worthy of repaying you, I surely will strive to do so." Unlike the ghost mother of ephemera, who, though dead, was not at the end of her natural life and could still possess another body to be revived, Zhen Qin's fate had run its course, without any technique to turn back time. Guan smiled and nodded, saying, "There will be an afterlife." Hearing this, Zhen Qin showed a smile, her eyes filled with expectation. She then lay down on the table and whispered, "Master, I feel a bit sleepy. May I sleep here for a while?" Guan nodded and replied, "Sleep, I will stay by your side." Zhen Qin closed her eyes, mumbling, "I suddenly miss Master Yi so much. It feels like she has been gone for a very long time." Guan's hand, which was holding a teacup, paused. He said nothing and continued drinking his tea. After Zhen Qin fell asleep, Shenzhen came over. She looked at Zhen Qin about to speak, but her brow furrowed and she approached Guan asking, "Are you okay?" She knew Zhen Qin's place in Guan's heart, and thinking of how Yi Lan, Xiaochuan and others' deaths affected Guan, she couldn't help but worry. "I am naturally fine," Guan said, looking at her with a smile and gesturing for her to sit down. Shenzhen took a seat, her gaze constantly on Guan. As Guan poured her tea, he said, "Do you think it's absurd? Someone with my cultivation level, yet unable to control life and death?" Shenzhen was secretly surprised. How did Guan see through what she was thinking? She spoke truthfully, "Indeed, you are the strongest being in my mind. It seems like life and death should be trivial matters to you, but..." Guan laughed and said, "This means I am not the strongest being. There is a celestial mandate that governs all, and those I help already have good fates. I merely add a touch of splendor. You can glimpse the past and the future, but can you glimpse the celestial mandate?" Glimpse the celestial mandate? Shenzhen fell into deep thought. In fact, she was also confused about her own path of cultivation. She didn't enjoy sitting meditation and chi refinement. She preferred the arts and sought to improve her cultivation level through enlightenment, but inspiration was scarce, and her cultivation level had been stagnant for many years. Seeing that she was seriously contemplating, Guan did not disturb her. He looked towards the horizon, where the slanted sun was like blood, and the seas of clouds seemed ablaze. Looking at the celestial vault, Guan suddenly felt that the future he saw wasn't far enough. How high must one's cultivation level be to see to the end of this universe? Time flies like an arrow, and the years pass like a shuttle, slipping away never to return. A millennium is like a cloud of smoke, with worldly affairs vast like waves. Without the support of supporting Tao Sword Venerable's millennium, the celestial spirit great world faced no calamities from outer heaven, but internal strife remained intense. Ancient secret realms, Taoist fields, and the cave mansions of great powers emerged one after another, causing widespread deadly conflict among the realm's cultivators. Guan's Taoist field of the beginningless was now filled with medicinal herbs, and to this day, the lifespan provided by these herbs each year had surpassed 20 million years. Located at the edges of the world, the Taoist field of the beginningless on the nine-spirit continent had not faced any disturbance for 1,000 years. However, nearby human race cities were increasing and approaching the Taoist field of the beginningless. In that year, early summer, Guan stood on the edge of a cliff, watching Qin Chuan spar with the blood prison great saint. Qin Chuan, now of the nirvana realm level, was able to hold his own against the blood prison great saint, who was at the level of the loose immortal realm. The two combatants clashed in the sky, Guan establishing a barrier that allowed them to fight to their heart's content without affecting the dojo. After watching for a while, Guan lost interest and called up his attribute panel to take a look. Name, Guan. Lifespan, 3-155/25 660 408 118, Physique, Primordial Infinite Body, Cultivation Level, Innate Golden Immortal Realm Perfection, a lifespan of 256 billion years. Guan planned to break through after reaching a lifespan of 100 billion years. After all, according to the trends of the great heaven and earth, the celestial spirit great world would be engulfed in slaughter for the next 10,000 years unless there was intervention from powers beyond the heavens. Such slaughter was not meaningless. Guan could feel that the number of all living beings in the world had decreased by 10% compared to 1,000 years ago, but this also gave rise to more talents and great powers. The most famous battle in these 1,000 years was the one between the young immortal emperor and the Zhu Luo sword monarch for the theory of heaven, which ended in a crushing defeat for the sword monarch, who fled back to the great Hong sword heaven, while the young immortal emperor, after collecting 9 volumes of the theory of heaven, went into seclusion. Chapter 504. Never Give Up in the Woods. Yi Qingshan, Lin Chuan, Qingmeng, Gu Changxing, and Gu Qingdao moved forward while chatting, looking at the forest which felt both familiar and strange to them. They talked about the past millennium with deep emotion. Suddenly, Qingmeng said, "Do you think it's possible that Master is still alive?" At these words, the other four fell silent. Of course, they wished Guan were alive, but when they had left, the Master was still a cultivator at the Foundation Establishment realm. Judging by the cultivation speed he described, it seemed highly unlikely he could survive 1,000 years. Unless, of course, the Master had deceived them. After all, they had never truly understood his cultivation level. Isn't finding him one of the reasons for our return? Gu Qingdao, the youngest yet most composed of the 5, spoke up. He always felt that their Master was not like ordinary people. After roaming the great heaven and earth for 1,000 years and witnessing countless exceptional individuals, He still felt his master was in no way inferior to any of them. I Qingshan spoke, "Now that we're back, establishing a sect can wait. Let's first look for our master." His words met with the agreement of the others. Even if their master were no longer of this world, spending several years in search for him was worthwhile. Gradually their conversation turned to their sworn enemies. Mentioning their enemies made their teeth itch. Their disciples and friends had been slaughtered by these foes, and they themselves had narrowly escaped death. Even with all the hatred, they had no means of revenge, as their enemies were cultivators of the immortal Dao realm, backed by a major sect. As they talked, they came to a small stream and were struck dumb. Lin Chuan couldn't help but ask, "Could this be the same stream from 1,000 years ago? How is it still here?" I Qingshan was somewhat bewildered, responding, "A millennium isn't enough for the great heaven and earth to undergo massive change, especially since there hasn't been sect conflict or demon mischief around here. Naturally, there wouldn't be much alteration." They looked around, recalling the past intricacies of their lives. After a while, the sound of footsteps came from deep within the woods across the stream, drawing the attention of I Qingshan and the others. They hadn't sensed the presence of humans or demons, so the sound of footsteps was certainly startling. Looking intently, they saw a young woman in green clothes, carrying a bamboo basket, walking out from the depths of the forest. Her beautiful face and pure aura were like that of a celestial maiden descending to the human world, leaving I Qingshan and the others stunned. The newcomer was an Xian. Chapter 505. Long Family Destiny Pattern. Celestial Dao merits. I Qingshan and his 4 companions acted quickly. They first chose a mountain to construct buildings, and then began recruiting children with spirit roots. In just 1 year, they had gathered over 300 young boys and girls, and then began to earnestly teach them cultivation. 100 years later, after the first batch of disciples had grown up, they officially started to establish their sect, named Chengkuan Sect. The Chengkuan Sect. There were many sects with this name in the world, but I Qingshan wanted there to be only one Chengkuan sect. His ambitious declaration at the founding ceremony was overheard by Guan at the dojo. Guan just smiled lightly, not paying much attention. He didn't even bother to calculate the destiny of the Chengkuan sect anymore, choosing to leave it as a mystery, as a bit of color in life. The seasonal patterns in the celestial spirit great world were broadly the same. At the start of autumn this year, Guan lay under a tree, hands pillowed behind his head, eyes closed. It seemed as though he was sleeping, but he was actually observing the Supreme Sect. After all, he had spent the earlier half of his life in the Supreme Sect, and even after 1,000 years, Guan still held some sentiment for it. He was currently paying attention to Longqing. Before leaving the Third Medicine Valley, Guan had begun to release the Guiyuan Divine Tao within Longqing's body, allowing him to gradually regain his qi refinement talent. Longqing, born in the Nirvana realm, had completely recovered his true strength after 1,000 years of cultivation. Under his leadership, the Third Medicine Valley had become a very powerful force within the Supreme Sect. Everyone knew that he was raised by Guan. With him there, the bond between the Supreme Sect and the supporting Dao Sword Venerable would not break. Therefore, even those whose cultivation levels were several greater realms higher than his would still try to please him. Unlike Guan's style, Longqing turned the Third Medicine Valley into a power-chasing valley, losing the leisurely and peaceful atmosphere of the past. At this moment, someone was persuading Longqing. This person was a profound Yuan-free immortal who came from the World Gate. Guan initially thought he was here to cause trouble, especially since he carried the thick aura of the battle court. However, this person had lingered outside Celestial Spirit Great World for decades and then infiltrated the Supreme Sect, where he stayed for several decades before finally approaching Longqing. He was currently explaining to Longqing about the strength of the Long clan and their deep connections with the battle court. Previously, Yi Tianji had shown Longqing many images from past lives, but those were only fragments of memories. If Longqing and Candlestar could indeed lead the Supreme Sect to become the ruler of the world, it would be a good thing, providing Guan with a sense of presence as well. Of course, if Longqing were to go astray, Guan would not ignore it. He had protected Longqing, so he had the responsibility to keep an eye on Longqing, to prevent him from walking the path of slaughter followed by his previous life and ancestors. Guan stood up and headed towards the mountain forests. With the establishment of the Jianghu sect, the sect had been aggressively recruiting disciples, and the number of disciples had quickly surpassed 10,000. With so many people, there were bound to be some who caused trouble. Indeed, someone was heading towards the forbidden area designated by the Jianghu sect, approaching the Taoist field of the beginningless. Guan felt it necessary to arrange a guard, pretending to be a hermit in deep mountains. An Xian, who usually needed to focus on cultivation, didn't have the time to watch continuously. He had just entered the mountain forest when a streak of white light sped over and landed on his shoulder. It was the white spirit rat. "Master, where are you going?" the white spirit rat curiously asked. Guan laughed heartily. "You run around all day full of energy and you don't cultivate. How about becoming the demon king?" The white spirit rat's eyes lit up at hearing this. It asked, "Really? Come, I'll transform some demons and you can choose from them. From now on, you'll be in charge of guarding around the Taoist field, and you will not allow anyone to trespass without permission." "That's great, master. I definitely won't let you be disappointed." The white spirit rat said excitedly. Even though it had shrunk its rat body, it still looked chubby, laughing like a trembling white fur ball. Guan began instructing the white spirit rat on what it could and couldn't do. This guy was too mischievous. Rules must be established to prevent it from becoming utterly lawless. He couldn't allow it to become like the Cyan Bull demon under Lord Lao Zi of the Great Monad. Divine exotic immortal spirit couldn't help but say, "Do you really think I could escape if it comes to that?" Leah glanced at it and said, "Then why don't you leave now?" "I must go regardless. Perhaps this is my only chance to catch up to Anhao." Divine exotic immortal spirit rolled its eyes, retorted irritably, "You're always talking about Anhao. It's been years without any news of him. He might already be dead. Don't always fantasize about how strong your opponents are and then force yourself. That's impossible. He can't be dead. His cultivation level must be outrageous. With my current abilities, I doubt I could withstand even one of his moves." Leah shook his head. No matter how far the places he had visited or how strong the people he had met, he always believed that Anhao was the foremost talent in heaven and earth. He felt that fate had made him encounter Anhao, and that was a blessing to him. With Anhao there, he would never be complacent about his achievements. He would always feel not strong enough and thus continue to strive. Divine exotic immortal spirit scratched its head, feeling that Leah was delusional and beyond persuasion, but it was not panicking. After all these years, it suddenly wanted to see its master, and Leah should be able to help it. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.